Friends, hello and welcome to this City Council regular meeting of the Eureka City Council this Tuesday, April 7th. It's nice to see so many people here. Welcome. We're going to open this meeting with the land acknowledgement. The land that Eureka rests on is known in the Wiyot language as Jirojiji. Past actions by local, state, and federal governments remove the Wiyot and other indigenous peoples from the land and threaten to destroy their cultural practices. The city of Eureka acknowledged the Wiyot community, their elders both past and present, as well as future generations. This acknowledgement demonstrates the city's commitment to dismantle the ongoing legacies of settler colonialism. And could we get a roll call, please?
Councilmember Castellano?
Here.
Councilmember Moulton?
Here.
Councilmember Fernandez?
Here.
Councilmember Bauer?
Here.
And Councilmember Contreras-Deloche?
Here.
Mayor Burgell?
Here. And I just wanted to let you know there has been a change to the agenda, that the public hearings that were scheduled for this evening will be postponed until April 21st. So if you are here for those, come back on the 21st. We'd love to see you. And now will all who care to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
How come the hearings got postponed?
Okay, and we had no closed session this evening. So we are going to open this meeting up with a couple of proclamations. Mel Pena, if you'd like to come up, please. Welcome. Our first proclamation is in recognition of Sexual Assault Awareness Month, April 2026. Whereas sexual violence affects children, youth, adults, and elders of all genders from all racial, cultural, and economic backgrounds with public health and social justice implications for every person in Eureka. And whereas staff and volunteers of the North Coast Rape Crisis Team provide 24-hour emergency services to survivors and their significant others, and believes that prevention and intervention are essential to a healthy community. And whereas no one person, organization, agency, or community can eliminate sexual assault on their own, but can, through collaboration and partnership, work together to support those impacted, improve responses, and ensure that survivors are not re-victimized. Now, therefore, I, Mayor Kim Burgell, on behalf of the Eureka City Council, reaffirm our commitment to the North Coast Rape Crisis Team and holding its values of heal, help meet survivors where they're at, empower them in their healing journeys, affirm their choices, and listen to their stories, and acknowledges April 2026 as Sexual Assault Awareness Month. And if you'd like to say a few words, we're going to clap for you.
Thank you to the Eureka City Council for the ongoing support of Sexual Assault Awareness Month and the work of the North Coast Rape Crisis Team. For over 50 years, NCRCT has been providing essential free services to survivors of sexual assault in our community. These include a 24-hour bilingual crisis line, accompaniment to evidence collection exams, support through law enforcement and criminal court processes, crisis counseling, and financial assistance for survivors and their families. Last year alone, we assisted 554 survivors. Our services are available regardless of whether survivors are involved in the criminal justice process or when the harm occurred, and we continue to support them for as long as needed. This work is not possible without our community partners, including law enforcement, the District Attorney's Office, Cal Poly Humboldt, College of the Redwoods, and the sexual assault nurse examiners and tribal organizations. We need your help to ensure that survivors continue to receive the care they deserve. NCRCT is looking at a 50% funding cut from the state of California, and there are $0 in the budget for victims of crime. It is imperative that our community be heard and communicate with our state representatives that this is unacceptable. We encourage our community partners and the community to visit our website, ncrct.org, where there is a script available to make your voice heard. We also invite our community to attend the Dancing in the Rain Gala, an essential fundraising event, which is on May 2nd at the Arcata Community Center. We would be honored to have the council join us as well. Thank you again for supporting our work and the survivors we serve, and I'm happy to answer any questions that the council might have.
Thank you. Any questions? I just want to thank you for the incredible work that you do in our community. So necessary. It's a critical part of the healing in our community. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay, and next up, we have our proclamation for National Public Safety Telecommunications Week. Chief, did you want to come up, or who's coming up? Everyone. And Council Member Fernandez will be reading that one. Yeah. Welcome, and thank you.
Thank you.
A proclamation in recognition of National Public Safety Telecommunications Week. Whereas emergencies can occur at any time that require police, fire, or emergency medical services, and whereas an emergency occurs, the prompt response of police officers, firefighters, and paramedics is critical to the protection of life and preservation of property, and whereas the safety of our police officers and firefighters is dependent upon the quality and accuracy of information obtained from citizens who telephone the Eureka Public Safety Communications Center, and whereas public safety dispatchers are the first and most critical contact our citizens have with emergency services, and whereas public safety dispatchers are the vital link for our police officers and firefighters by monitoring their activities by radio, providing them information and ensuring their safety, and whereas public safety dispatchers of the Eureka Public Safety Communications Center have contributed substantially to the apprehension of criminals, suppression of fires, and treatment of patients, and whereas each dispatcher has exhibited compassion, understanding, and professionalism during the performance of their job in the past year. Now, therefore, I, Mario Fernandez, on behalf of Mayor Kim Burgell and the Eureka City Council, declare the week April 12th through April 18th, 2026, to be National Communications Week in Eureka in honor of the dispatchers whose diligence and professionalism keep our city and citizens safe.
The Eureka Police and Humboldt Bay Fire Communications Center would like to express our gratitude to the city for this recognition. In 2025, the Eureka Police and Humboldt Bay Fire Department Communications Center handled 99,537 calls into the center. 98.87% of the 911 calls into the center were answered within the first 10 seconds of them coming in. Our dispatchers handled 7,150 medical calls, 3,253 fire-related calls, and 67,481 police calls for service throughout the year. Over the past year, the Communication Center has continued to evolve by adopting new technologies and tools to better serve the first responders and citizens of Eureka. One key improvement was the implementation of a new testing system, which has streamlined the hiring process and helped identify highly qualified candidates for the communications dispatcher role. Additionally, we welcomed a new dispatcher to the team who has successfully completed both the training program and dispatch academy. This achievement has strengthened our staffing levels and enhanced our ability to effectively serve the community. As our communications center continues to grow and evolve, one thing remains constant: the unwavering dedication of our dispatchers. Their commitment to the center, our first responders, and the community, paired with their deep passion for the vital role they serve, sets them apart every day. I am proud to work alongside each one of you and truly appreciate the support, enthusiasm, and pride you bring to your profession. Thank you to all of you, and also thank you to our officers that are back in our dispatch center manning it so we can all be here tonight. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, and before we move forward, I did want to let you know, as part of my mayor's announcements, that as far as boards and commissions vacancies, so if you're looking to get involved in our city, we would love you to. We have the Board of Appeals is looking for 2 people. Design Review will need 1. Economic Development, 1. These are all commissions, by the way. Historic Preservation, looking for 2. Transportation Safety, 1. And then the OSPR Open Spaces Commission is looking for 2. And then lastly, I wanted to mention that next week on the 15th, which is Wednesday at 8 a.m. to noon at the Wharfinger, there will be a de-escalation training with the police department. And all are welcome to come. I'm going to go, so it'll be a lot of fun. And yeah, so there's that. We're going to move on now to presentations. The emergency shelter guidelines with Councilmember Contreras Deloach. Are you going to go down there? That's a good plan. Welcome.
Okay, hi y'all. Here we go. Okay, and I can't see. Okay, all right. Okay, so this is because I didn't want to have my back to you, so I asked Pam if I could be over here instead. So I get to sit down here where it's much cooler. So this was because we had started that emergency shelter ad hoc committee. We'd gotten it approved. I think it was February of 2025. Hang on, let me arrow. Pam, which way do I arrow? It's not. Right. I'm doing it, but it's not moving. Oh.
Oh, there we go.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Is that the second one? Yeah. Okay. Okay. So, purpose when we talked about it back in February 2025 was to assess current shelter and housing gaps, explore all feasible solutions, and provide information on proven and actionable strategies to address homelessness and strengthen the overall community and provide a safe, thriving Eureka. Oh, why is this blank?
Go one more time. There.
Oh, it's only going to let me see one bullet at a time?
You can, yeah, if you want to.
Oh my goodness. Okay, here we go, guys. All right. So council created the ad hoc February 2025. Our first meeting was in March of 2025. We meet monthly. There's been a few where we haven't been there either because of illness or, other absences. It includes 2 council members, myself and Councilmember Fernandez. And then our staff includes City Manager Miles Slattery, Care Managing Mental Health Clinician Jacob Rosen, CAPE Special Project Manager Jeff Davis, and Chief Building Official Brennan Riley. Occasionally, it's been attended by other staff and also other members of the community. It was retooled for 1 month in November 2025 to pivot to make a plan to address immediate food insecurity due to the delay of food assistance programs because of the overlap and interconnectedness of food and housing insecurity. I tend to read fast. Okay. So for information gathering, so there's been 2 online tours, Sacramento, California's Grove, San Rafael's campsite. There were 3 site tours of current communities. We had staff that went up to Portland. This was November. Is that right, Miles? November. So we had staff that went up to Portland. They were accompanied by a representative for a potential private investor that's interested potentially in working with the city. And they were able to tour Multnomah Safe Village, Dignity Village, and then they also took a look at Weidler Village, which is a city alternative shelter. And then there were 3 site tours of structure manufacturers, LIT in Portland, Oregon, BLBS on the Hoopa Valley Reservation, and Humboldt Havens on the Hoopa Valley Reservation as well. Okay. I'm going to go through these. Oh, I want to skip these. So you guys have seen these a lot. I put them in here so that when we have this available online and so the council can take a peek at this too. But these have popped up in every presentation that we've talked about. So you guys have seen these already a whole bunch of times. And I'm not going to go over them. I'm going to toggle through them, but they're in here. And that's talking about the zoning and where it's okay for us to place things. So, but I'm going to go past them into the, so that you're not sitting here all night long. Okay. So current shelter crisis sites. Oops, let me go back. There we go. Washington and Coster, 801 West Washington Street, Betty Kwan Chen's Family and Women's Shelter, 7th Street and St. Vincent de Paul, 3rd Street. And then we have, and here's our chronological timeline. I was requested to provide a little back history on it really quick. So that's why I'm kind of going over that really quick. Okay. So the other thing that we're in here, obviously there was just an article that came out too in Cal Matters, and it was saying what's the best way to combat homelessness, and studies have shown prevent it in the first place from happening, because once it happens, it can be really difficult. So since 2018, Uplift Eureka has successfully housed 259 individuals. Since 2023, Uplift Eureka's Rapid Housing Program has housed 81 of the 259 individuals. So they've really picked up in the last couple of years too. And Uplift Eureka's Homelessness Prevention Program provided financial assistance to 87 households. And so this is helping people that might be in the rears on their rent and they're kind of in an emergency situation. Oh, did it just give me the same slide? Okay. Okay. So this is the Multnomah Safe Rest Village. I wasn't there. This is the one that staff went to Portland. And you can here's a zoom out. You can kind of see it's situated inside of a lot of other things. And there's kind of a topography or topical view. This one that's the outside. It's very clean looking. They're using the lit homes, which I'll show you guys what those look like. So here's some of them. They're just tiny little cubes. So I have two things in here, and there'll be a little bit of a contrast. One is you're going to see this very, very meticulously maintained one, and then you'll see Dignity Village, which is more, they democratically run. It's like their own kind of HOA. They have their own. So this is run by Urban Alchemy. And so they have outreach workers that work there, and it's very tight. They have a lot of security. People can't come in there without, permission. So the grounds are kept very, very clean, as you can see. So, there's advantages and disadvantages both that I'm going to show you. So, advantages to this, it's very clean. And there's bicycles. They run a tight ship, so to speak, and there's places for gardening. And no significant issues for the community. Dignity Village was something that, this is in Northeast Portland. This started as kind of like a housing protest in 2000, and then it turned into more of a permanent thing. So they moved to, I'm trying to remember what the name of the areas were that they went to. Anyway, they moved to this other area, and I'm going to show you a map of that too. It was supposed to be temporary till they found another site. And of course, another site was not ever located by the city of Portland during that 3 years. And so they ended up officially sanctioning it. So it's very, it's considered democratically self-administered, self-governed, and self-operated. And so you're going to see, again, advantages and disadvantages. The one that we were looking at before is very clean, but it almost looks like it could just be a storage facility for just, people's belongings. When you look at this one, you'll see that there's some challenges with this, but you'll also see, art and plants, and, it definitely has kind of more of a lived in kind of thing going on. Something else to note with Dignity Village, it's really out in the middle of nowhere. It's not close to services. So there's a lesson to be had there as well. And here's what it looks like from the top. You can see there's a lot of debris and, garbage. This is, so they have articles of incorporation, they have like a board, and they kind of, they have their way of kind of governing it. They have a cow. Okay. So, but you can see, Building supplies and building materials. This is the type of stuff that, in here, our zoning and stuff like that, this would end up being an abatement issue. It's not safe. And they did say to staff that they have a lot of fires, that this community has had quite a few fire calls. I think there's probably a happy medium between the two. But these are, again, you can see this isn't really, there's some safety concerns with how this one's being operated. So I think the takeaway from something like this is that, anything, the city has already moved forward, with Bayside Village and some of these other things. Anything that we do as a city that we have our hands on, probably then, for liability reasons, we need to be really careful about not having grounds that look like this, not having this kind of situation that can pose safety hazards. These are a couple of an engineering student up at Cal Poly working with AHA had created some of these kind of mock-ups of like how to design different villages so that there's, wet units, there's individual spaces, and it's more kind of community driven. Studies have shown people do better and they heal better when there's more of kind of a sense of community. So, and we know that that's often through environmental design and planning. So here are some slides that staff did of while they were sent me some of these from Portland. This is their lit home site visit. I actually am kind of disappointed I didn't get any of the really cool looking factory looking ones. I was like, oh, I wanted those. So this is outside of the building up there. And then we'll go into it. So this is kind of taking a look at it. I really appreciate the way that they look at this. They say it's every rung of the housing, situation. The status quo is that you oftentimes have people in tents or tarps or, whatever it is that they're kind of trying to find a way to shelter themselves in. The G series is that minimum. That very first slide that I showed you, those smallest ones were G series. The A series is bigger, and this is the one that the city is more interested in looking at. They have single or double units. The double units house 2 people and the singles 1. And then, of course, they have kind of these larger, and then, for people who don't know, everybody just kind of refers to them as wet units. You have to have units where you have, shower, bathroom, and kitchen. So let's see here. Okay. So here's some of the just floor plans on those different things that everybody brought back. That mid, like I said, up there at the top, the G series, it's just basics. It's getting people out of a tent, which is not safe for them and not healthy. Okay. And then there's kind of more floor plans. Again, I'm going to figure out a way for all of us to have access to this too. So this is a breakdown too of, so their costs, they're higher. We did boss cubes, as you guys know, and the boss cubes, I think, Miles, city manager Slattery, those are somewhere around 20,000 a unit as well.
Depending on the units, the ones that are there that are single occupancy, depending on the volume that you get, I think we paid 12 per each one.
12,
Less
okay.
expensive.
And then those were 10-year warranty?
On materials, but the other issue with the boss cubes is that they have to be installed on site, and that has proven to be difficult.
Yeah, it's like IKEA, but for housing. It's challenging. So, and also we have salt air, which is something that just has to be kept in mind for anything that is metal. So the boss cubes have kind of, but anyway, I wanted this cost comparison breakdown in here so that you guys could see that everything is, somewhere in the range of at least 14 and higher. But like I said, those boss cubes units are not suitable for where we're located next to the ocean. Here is a tour of what lit homes look like, which let me go back really quick, and draw your eye to the left side of the page. These are fire rated. They're designed for seismic. They're much safer. They have higher standards for safety. Okay. So here's what they look like. This gives you kind of an example. Not exactly cozy, but serviceable. There's a wet unit, which is ADA accessible, which is really important. It's a requirement. I think it's 1 in 8 or 1 in 10.
1 in 25.
If it's emergency shelter situation, it's 5%. But if it's temporary housing, I think you can get to 10.
Okay. Okay, so that's lit. The other place we went and took a look at, Councilmember Fernandez, I set up a tour. He went up there and met with everybody. I did as well. So this is up on the Hoopaw Reservation. This is Building Lives by Building Structure. It's a nonprofit, and also Humboldt Havens, which is also a nonprofit. Unfortunately, I couldn't get some of my pictures to upload, which is a bummer. They have a huge 65,000 square foot facility. It's so big that there are 4 houses inside of it right now, and it doesn't even take up a fraction of it. It's just enormous. They have this massive assembly line, and they used it years ago. They used it to address their own housing shortages up there as a tribe. And then it just set, and they weren't using it. And Franklin Richards, is he in one of these pictures? Oh, no, the picture that wouldn't download, of course. So Franklin Richards started this, and the tribe basically has a cooperation agreement with him, along with College of the Redwoods. And so that was one of the reasons why I wanted to take a look at what they were doing up there. So they're training students, and they're getting what is it, CT credits,
Career technical education.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And this allows them to come out and to go straight into other carpentry programs. And so they're really this is a workforce training. This is a true nonprofit in the truest sense of the word. So they're building ADUs, they're building houses up there, and they're also they can build wet units, they can build individual things. And these are different. These are not warranted for 10 years. These are built like houses. So they will last as long as they're maintained.
These are the same folks that had built the Hempcrete ADU,
they are the ones that
correct?
just built that Hempcrete home over on, in concert with Lisa Sundberg from Trinidad Rancheria. Yeah. So they built that beautiful home that's over there on Bay Street in Eureka that is made out of hempcrete. And I had pictures of that too, but it was being stodgy. So this is something else I wanted to show you. So you can do wet units there. Their prices come in very close. It's about $20,000 for single individual bedroom units. But again, these are intended they'll last as long as they're built like a home. Their wet units likewise are also built like a home, and things are built with RV hookups. And so, price wise, they come in at about the same price point, but the difference is this is a workforce development, and these don't have a 10-year warranty. It's a for good type of thing.
Well, and they also don't operate at scale just yet. If we wanted to order 1 or 2, maybe we could get those in about 6 months. But if we wanted if we wanted 25 of the lit units.
He said about 3 weeks for
really? Okay.
Yeah. So not for the wet units, but for the individual bedroom that is strictly bedroom. So like a 10 by 10 or a 10 by 12. So that would take them about 3 weeks on each one. So this is a different thing, but I think it may not be like a solution if you wanted to go and buy, 30 of them like we did with, Boss Cubes or something. But it is something that can be done. And it has this kind of feedback loop into the community as well, which I think is really important. So what we're going to talk about now, though, is Conestoga huts. So that's what these are. So these are in a lot of locations in Oregon. However, our zoning they're considered something different. For California's purposes, they're considered a tent. Mm-hmm. They are made out of 2x4s and steel. They're up off the ground. They have the front and back of them are hardy plank, which is like a cement composite board. And then they're wrapped in 5 layers. So they have multiple layers of fire retardant insulation, and then they have multiple layers of like thick tarping, and then they have this kind of hard wire mesh. And so they're hard. If you go and you push on them or knock on them, these are hard walls. So they have windows and they have vents. And in Oregon, people use battery powered to keep them off grid and to prevent from having to run tons of electricity and other things to them, but still provide heating sources. Typically, what people are using are these like $150 battery powered heaters and stuff like that have about a 7 to 10 hour charge. So these would qualify as tents for California, but it gets everybody up off the ground. One of the issues that we have in an encampment situation is that the tents have to be ADA accessible. You have to have them up off the ground. You have to have a heat source. You have to all these things, which in some ways sounds almost counterintuitive because, we're talking about people that right now are, stuck in bushes and, potentially gutters and doorways. And it's like, geez, it seems like anything would be an improvement, but we do have this kind of threshold that we need to meet, which is one of the reasons why I'm interested in this, because it meets it. It's a tent, but it's a sturdy, non-flammable, insulated, safe, locking door, window, space, which solves myriad issues. So the biggest thing with these are delivered on, they can either assemble them and they're $4,500 fully assembled and done, ready to go with their decks and everything else. Or they're $2,500 and then you assemble it yourself, and it comes in 4 large pieces and it all, bolts together. The wrap is really easy to replace on it. And so there's a number of reasons why this is kind of a good route for us to consider. My takeaway from all of this is doable. After going through this and really looking at it, I'm like, this is something that we can really do. This is an option for us to get people off streets and in a more stable situation. These aren't intended for long term, but they could last for a really long time. Like I said, the frame of it itself is sturdy and viable and will last a long time. The wrap is what would need to be replaced, but they think it's about a 5-year. That's everything.
Councilmember Castellano.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for your work on this. It's great to see some options for structures, and I appreciate that there are some local workforce development ones to consider. There's a few things that I feel like I have some big things I think that I have questions about, just in terms of sites, partners, and management structures that seem kind of critical to the conversation, maybe before we start thinking about purchasing structures. So I'm just kind of curious, like, how was the research on that? Did, have some sites been located? Did conversations with potential partners take place, or different management structures had with those partners?
So some of this I'll answer, and then some I'll let City Manager Slattery answer. But the reason why I didn't say anything about name a particular partner or anything like that is because there's a number of individuals that are talking with this, but and there's churches that want to participate that if they were to meet basic thresholds, would have already put Conestoga huts up. So it's kind of trying to figure that out for them. And that's kind of a whole other thing. But so a number of public-private partnerships. So one of the investors hasn't talked about that openly, and there's nothing signed yet. And so for me, I'm like, it's not a done deal until something like that happens. And
I don't need to know specific names, but just number of potential partners talked with, number of sites that would potentially be available, management structures, like an overview, some numbers. Yeah. I don't need to know this person's
He's
name.
got some of that, and then I'll do some of it.
So we have we've recently applied for a private donation from an entity south of here, and have heard back from them, and we're working with them. There's the individual that Councilmember Contreras-Deloach spoke of, and the location. So there's been 2 that have been talking about as far as partnering, as far as funding opportunities. We did meet once with AHA and had discussions similar to the discussions that we had previously. It was only one meeting, nothing after that. But other than the structure that we had discussed with you, Councilmember Castellano, with AHA at that time, there wasn't much further about the actual organization of the how it would be operated or anything. As far as locations, we obviously Betty owns property on 2nd and A Street, and that's been an area that we've been concentrating on funding for. We've looked into the permanent local PLHA for funding for that, to have that site prepped for a site. We're on our 2nd rendition of funding for that. The 2 individuals that we've spoken to, the donation as well as the individual, were also concentrated on that site as well. We have a layout designed for that site, and that layout has been proposed to both the private donor as well as the organization that we're seeking a donation from. So we got really good news today. Our staff had spoken to that organization, and based on those conversations, we're optimistic, but we won't know until we hear back from them.
And how many units would that be
It's
potentially?
40 units right now,
Okay.
and what we're looking at, we have that grant out for $600,000 for the prep of the site. The donation we're looking at is 2.4, and that would include the prep of the site as well as the units. And there's been discussions with LIT where they would be the developer, and we would also have spoken to local contractors who are willing to help support the installation of them.
Great. And any other sites?
We were offered a private site. That offer, we believe, still stands, but it would likely take somebody other than the city of Eureka to be the person that we're operating. It does meet the zoning requirements, and if there are interested parties, then we could connect the two for sure.
And then just to the question about locations, these are much smaller, but there's a number of churches that are interested in participating. We needed to find out kind of some of what the difficulty was, and we figured it out. It's that we need to change. Some of the churches are just strictly as institutions. They need to change their filing with the state of California. So now we've all been talking about how to change that. We've figured it out. They just need to change their filing over, and it's quite a process, to a welfare designation, and then that allows them to do this. And so each of those, there's multiple churches that are interested in having anywhere from 2 to 5. So again, that's not very many, but it's what they feel like they can manage. And when you have 4 or 5 that are willing to participate in, or at least kicking it around, 3 for sure, that's just that many more people. And that would be really good. So that kind of, they're just trying to kind of figure out how they, it's about a 7-month process for them to get these different designations, and it's a variety of forms that they need to do. So now I'm wearing 20 different hats, because I'm like, okay, how do we help with paperwork, just as myself. So getting that done. But yeah, I just kind of wanted to, I think ultimately probably to answer this, it really can't just be the city, right? It has to be all of us. Like, we need everybody to really kind of lean in, because it's a complicated problem.
Councilmember Moulton?
Thank you. And thank you. And Councilmember Fernandez and all the staff who have helped with this. I think finding more solutions is just a great idea, more variety. I just wanted to point out that you showed 2 sort of example sites, one that was very austere and very clean, clearly very organized and probably very disciplined and potentially limited, and one that looked more like people were kind of building whatever they want, and there was also a lot of potential harm in like garbage and debris, but it had personality. And I wanted to point out that you can have clean and functional and healthy, and also personality. Yeah. I was at the Raven Project for many years, and if you've ever been inside that house, it is absolutely covered in artwork and memorabilia. It's got a garden that's thriving. It's got a kitchen that's really active. Like there's lots of color, and the people who come in there to get services often end up employed there, or at least at the time, and they all kind of leave their mark on the place. So that is there's room for both health and humanity. But I think, as Councilmember Castellano points out, it's going to come down to who's doing the management, what kind of structure they have, and what their priorities are. So I think that's definitely important to consider when we're talking about partners, is who's going to not only provide the space, but provide the real humanity and dignity for the people who are staying there.
Yeah, and that one, the One Village, Dignity Village, one of the challenges is that they're just not located conveniently to services, which could also have something to do with the accumulation of debris and things like that. So I think that, it does become really important to remember that, close to bike routes or, bus paths, probably not more than 3 miles from where you need to get, reasonable ways to get around. There's different needs. Before I forget, I do want to thank staff who have spent so much time and energy on doing research and site visits, and are themselves very creative. And I do want to say, you know, I have continued meeting with AHA and some other groups pretty regularly, and they have been critical to helping me build connections in the community and with some other. That's how I actually made the inroads with the Hoopa tribe, and really was able to make connections with some of them. Was meeting them through these different housing forums and stuff. So they've been really valuable in a kind of soft consulting way and kind of helping me know what direction to go on pursuing things. And staff has been great. I want to throw in one little thing. We have such an incredible staff. And I've thought about this because we're going to have these presentations over the next few weeks about including today, about different things that members of our staff are doing where they really have done something that just wasn't done before. And I think some of what we're trying to do, it's already been done before in other places, but we need to kind of replicate it on a larger scale here. But if anybody could do it, it would really be our staff. And I sincerely believe that it's going to be them that can get this done and figure out how to make this happen. And I think we really can. Houston has housed tens of thousands of people. I mean, they cut their homeless population by like 65%. I mean, they did a massive by doing this kind of robust housing situation. But again, they had more flexibility in their zoning. And whereas we in California, we've got some barriers we're bumping up against that make it challenging. But I have a lot of confidence that we can get this done.
Yes, go ahead.
I also like that you have found an inexpensive alternative that works with the Hoopa. That's fantastic. I love that. Workforce development and local economy and supporting the tribal government and their industrial efforts. Amazing.
Do you have any questions? So I actually do. So I appreciated your report too. I appreciated that you brought back some different ideas for what it could look like. And what I want to say is, and we've been having this conversation for 10 years. And we've had AHA bring forth villages. We've looked at Dignity Village. I myself with Heidi Mesner traveled to the Gas Lamp District and to Skid Row and to San Rafael and all the different places. And it feels like, you know, when we shut down the camping ordinance, my understanding was when you were doing an ad hoc committee that you were going to bring back locations, people to manage the situation, and how to get people indoors. And I do appreciate that you did a lot of work on this, but it feels like we're still in the same place. We still don't have a location. We potentially have one or two now, but those have been being worked on for a while. We still don't know who's going to live there. Who's willing to live there. We don't have an idea about how these things are going to be funded and who's going to run it. So I guess those were my questions about when you were doing the ad hoc committee. Those were the kinds of things that I was looking forward to hearing. I love that you partnered with Hoopa, or that you met with the Hoopa tribe, and I think that can be a really great partnership for us. But without a location, it's not going to be very helpful.
Yeah, I think that, there's been a lot of talk about Second and A, but I think, and it is in this, I just didn't spend time on it, but I think council taking a closer look at what is available on those maps that have been shown to us, and perhaps deciding to lean in on that would be a really good thing. I just want to be careful about not, it's not my... I'm giving a report, but it would be out of line for me to make a recommendation or something. That's not my role right now. So I can say, here are the grants that they're applying for. Here are the sites that we're looking at. Here are potential investors, one of which we can't mention. There are churches that are willing to participate. So it's I don't know how far everybody got in the process before. Mm-hmm. But I think that some of it is just waiting on us.
Okay.
So.
All right. Well, I just wanted to voice my concerns because, as I'm down in Old Town just last week, calling the non-emergency line on two different people who are yelling at individual tourists walking around town, and I mean, and you guys know me, it's not that I don't care about people, but I can understand how some people are afraid, and we've got to come up with some ideas. And we've been working on it, and we've been working on it, and we've been working on it. And some of us have been here longer than others, right?
Yeah.
But nothing, I mean, we are hitting the rock, but things aren't changing. They are, but they're not. And so I guess, after those 2 calls and then being down at Matticat Plaza, watching people just have all their stuff all over the place, there's a difference between good neighbors and bad neighbors. My frustration for, the people that are down there hanging out in Old Town, the people that are running businesses, and the people that I see sitting out in front of Free Meal in all kinds of filth. It's not, I don't see how we're being as compassionate by allowing those kinds of behaviors. It really is starting to become, it's been a problem, but it's more of a problem now. Maybe this isn't the appropriate place to talk about that, but I just took the opportunity. So
Yeah,
those are my feelings.
I appreciate that. Actually, it looks like I'll say something in a minute, but I know Councilmember Fernandez was just waving his hand.
Yeah, it's not that we're committing to any sort of disservice to the council or the greater community. It's just that this is a larger subject that is very difficult for us to take on with just the 6 of us, and even with city staff doing what they can, it's onerous, to say the least. And when you do look at some of the models that we've taken into consideration, Dignity Village, I like what they have. They're doing what they want. They're doing it democratically. They have their own set of bylaws. It is very much like an HOA, but it's 10 miles outside of the city center of Portland. They're, like it's already been hinted at, far and away from any sort of services. So, for us to try and achieve something like that, we wouldn't be able to do it within our city limits. I mean, something comparable would be likely where the Amazon warehouse might be going over there near the Arcata McKinleyville Airport. Yeah. So, there is space. It's just not within Eureka. And I'm not saying that we don't want to help, but it's not something we can do alone. Alternatives I think about are, moving away from Boss Cubes. We do have the lit manufactured ones. We also have the opportunity to work with workforce development training here in our county. Of course, building that to scale is something that we have to work with. But then advocacy from our end, because I know transitional housing doesn't count towards our housing element, which is a detriment for us. And I understand the idea of that not wanting to be permanent, but to not be able to count what we're building for those people to get to something permanent also hurts us in that capacity. So there's a few different lines that we can take here, which are advocacy from that perspective. And then, of course, trying to find a partner to work with us to house the people that we have here in Eureka, maybe not immediately in Eureka, but maybe just outside of it, if any of what I'm saying makes sense in that. Okay.
You're saying the county needs to pick the north.
Yeah.
Member Moulton.
I think you actually had a question. Managing clinician Rosen might be able to help me with the stats in case you happen to have them. You mentioned that the city of Eureka has housed 259 people since 2018.
That would be I'm sorry to interrupt, but Jeff Davis, special
Jeff
project
Davis.
Jeff
Oh,
Davis.
sorry. Is Jeff here? Thank
Jeff
you.
is here.
Sorry. Right. 2 awesome dudes. Okay. My question is, of those 259 people, do you know if any of them have ended up back on the street?
Yeah, I couldn't give you a number on that. So when we work with folks in our rapid rehousing program, we are working with folks that have the highest need and that are the most highest level of vulnerability. If we had 100% success rate, we wouldn't be helping the right people. We wouldn't be helping the folks that need it the most. I couldn't tell you. I would say with our rapid rehousing program, I think we have, I would say in the ballpark of 85% success rate of folks that are still housed today, which is extremely high. And I think that goes a lot to show our dedication. I think our staff continue to follow folks. Just yesterday, I saw someone that had been exited from our program for over 4 years. And that household still has their housing, and when they need assistance, they come down to our resource center and they come and give us a call. And so, years and years and years beyond our responsibility, we are still looking for folks, looking for ways to help these folks. I would say, yeah, between 80 to 85% of those folks are still currently housed.
Thank you. And thank you for framing it like that. If it had a 100% success rate, we'd be serving the wrong people. I know that some of the folks who cause the most disruption are the ones who are the most difficult to house, or the most difficult to engage with, to build trust with. And they're also some of the folks who are the most visible because they're having the most trouble. And so I appreciate your work. And I appreciate that 80-85%, even as a soft estimate, is double the success rate that I'm seeing reporting on at the state level. So I would say that, of course, it's not enough. And it's never going to be enough. Eureka is not going to solve homelessness. But I think we have put in absolutely heroic efforts. And this effort to evolve and grow the program and find more opportunities is just evidence that that is a priority of this council, the council before it, and all the staff that are involved. So I just want to express my gratitude for that and point out that success. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything further?
Well, I will say one thing, so having a year of meetings and then of course having a lot of meetings with other people. One thing that I would note is that frequently what ends up happening is there's a rehash of what the problem is. And that does make it very difficult to solve problems because then you're focused on the problem and not focused on the solution. And so I actually don't agree that we can't solve homelessness. I actually really don't, because that hasn't always been the state. And so I think we should probably stop accepting that, and we should shoot for something. And my personal opinion after kind of going through this is a full-scale rescue operation. Do you think you can rescue a few hundred people? So, I don't, my thought on thing is always, shoot for the stars. If you fall short, then you fell short a little bit. But I don't like, when you set standards so low, that can just be a race to the bottom. And, if we want people off the streets, we need to put them someplace. They need to have someplace to go. It isn't enough just to enforce. And I wasn't going to bring that up or talk about it, but since it was discussed, there has to be a component. Those two things have to work together. It's, of course, you need to, there needs to be enforcement, or there needs to be accountability is probably a better way to put it. But there needs to be, where are we directing them? What are we doing? And so is there some place to go? And we have all this housing that's going up. This is a really housing forward council. And there's all this housing of all kinds. There's townhomes, there's homes, there's apartment complexes, there's senior housing, there's youth housing, there's foster housing. There's a lot happening. And then we also have these Boss Cubes, and we have Bayside Village, and we have Betty's Blue Angels. We have these other things. What we don't have is a way to deal with the people that are just on the street. We don't have enough of this interim housing. We don't have enough of this baseline. We are very successful at keeping people in housing when we have someplace to put them. And so again, it comes back to that. And you can make nominal, we have a year and a half worth of data in the state of California on how successful enforcement only is without having some place to house them, and it's not successful on its own. It turns out you can ticket people till the end of time, but if they don't have some place to go, it just creates a barrier to them actually getting into housing. And that's something they're starting to see, is there's people having more trouble getting into and staying in housing because of the amount of tickets that they have accumulated.
Councilmember Bauer.
No, thank you both for taking the time to go after an issue that is profoundly challenging, right? I will say, just for us to think about, met a guy, I was on a ride along with one of our rangers, and the guy's name was Joe. And I'm like, hey man, how you doing? I came and get you a place to stay. And he didn't want to. So what do we do? How do we address that? That's one of those things that no matter how much housing we can build, there's people that just don't want to. I mean,
my personal opinion, is you have to have the two things work in concert. There has to be an accountability component. Yeah. But if you don't have access to some place to go and stabilize, then if you're missing one or the other, it doesn't work. They have to go together. Like that's just my opinion. Those two things have to come together. And I just think we're missing that very, very bottom layer of get them off the street. We're just missing that. There's a lot of reasons why people avoid shelters, and it could be separation from an older son, or afraid of, theft of their belongings, or feeling too scared or vulnerable about the potential of assault. There's a lot of things that keep people from kind of being like, I don't want to if I don't have to. And so it's kind of complicated. And I do think this could be a potential way forward. If it were me and I just had a wand, this is how I would do it. I would start putting them in these huts. I would, because then they've got a locking door. They've got some place that they're safe, they're warm, they're dry, and they can secure their possessions. We can keep an eye on it. We are already dedicating a wild amount of resources in time and financially to, a lot of these programs that are going through the city is to work with this population. So we have quite a large and growing infrastructure to work with this community. So it's not like it doesn't exist, but they're spread everywhere throughout the city, and they're in people's yards, and they're in the bushes here, and they're on the trail there. And I think, the shortest point between A and B, how do we get them into some place, keep track of them, and keep them a little bit safer and keep things safer? I believe in that enforcement component. I think there needs to be some other pieces in place. We've got to have some place to start putting people and keep an eye on it so that it doesn't spiral into, a mess or a dangerous situation. Everybody's needs are different. I've heard, and I don't know, they could probably speak to this better, but in talking to some people, down at Free Meal and stuff, they said, well, it seems like the people who were easiest to house, we've housed in the last couple years. And now we're getting into the population that is the hardest, that has the most challenges. And I don't know if they would agree, if our clinicians would agree with that, but that's what I've heard. It kind of seems like that being down there, that this is getting really like the most challenging. But I also think it says a lot that we've housed lots of single moms with kids. We've housed those single dads. We've helped people have gone through rehab and put their lives back together, and we've got places for seniors to go. They're not sleeping in their cars like they were 4 years ago. Like, there's a lot that's happened, and a lot more will happen. We've got a lot of doors opening up in the next year and a half. I got a lot of hope, almost 1,000 new units of relief,
Okay. Thank you. All right. This moves us to public comment. This is the time for members of the public who wish to be heard on matters that do not appear on the agenda. City Council policy is to limit each speaker to 3 minutes. Such time allotment or portion thereof shall not be transferred to other speakers. Pursuant to the Brown Act, the City Council may not take action on an item that does not appear on the agenda. Let's see. The public will be allowed. Oh, I already talked about that. So, are there anybody from the public who would like to comment on a non-agenda item? Come forward, please. Hi, Joanne.
Good evening. My name's Joanne McGarry. I am an Arcata resident, but you do allow me to come here on occasion to make some comments, and I appreciate that because I do spend a lot of time in Eureka. 3 things I guess I want to mention that aren't on the agenda. Bicycles and bike parking. I know you're building a lot of new housing, and I just want to say that my ability to safely and sanely ride my new e-bike across the Humboldt Bay Trail and come into Eureka for something like Arts Alive or Friday Night Markets or even a Board of Supervisors meeting, and maybe even coming to a meeting here, safe parking for those vehicles. And also people who live here who have bicycles and want to safely house them at their place, at their residence. It would be wonderful if you had adequate parking. Right now, I have to put my e-bike into my living space. It's a trip hazard. I've had to rearrange all that, and it's really an issue for the future that, communities like Eureka and Arcata really need to think about as they build new housing and adapt old housing for a non-car future. So that brings me to climate action, and you're going to have Arcata visiting the climate action plan, the regional climate action plan at their next meeting. And I know you passed it back in January or early February. And it's going to require us to really change our behaviors a lot and signal the sign that we don't want to do the same old stuff that's harming the planet. And that includes celebrating with things like fireworks. And I just saw the wonderful we're going to have a spectacular fireworks show on the 4th of July. And I think now is the time that bombs bursting in air, even as mimicking that as a celebratory type thing, really need to be reconsidered. They're harmful, they're dangerous, they're expensive, they really hurt people and animals. And I just think we really need to think differently about how we celebrate in the night sky. And so I would like to suggest that you look at alternatives. There's a local person who's done a wonderful light show, a laser light show in San Francisco in the fog that's magnificent. And he's interested in talking to people like you about something like that. So I just do want to say in the last 15 seconds I have, because all day today I've just been quaking with what potentially could have been happening, and it still could happen. And I want you to consider, like Arcata did, a resolution on the war in Iran.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hi, everybody. I'm Amy Scott, MSW student, 2 more months, so close. I was going to talk about some really cool experiences I had recently, which was I got to shadow the CARE team and I got to shadow at CareCorps, and I'm just so impressed by the things that we've been able to do. The CARE team, specifically the clinicians, the case managers, I felt immediately the compassion, they really speak to their namesake. Their approach to how they work with the clients that they're called for to assist with, it was really, as graduating soon and deciding where I'm going and stuff, it was really inspiring to see. And that is what I wish we could do for housing for the same thing. Thank you so much for the presentation, Renee. I remember very deeply the impetus for the creation of that ad hoc committee. And it was that camping ban ordinance, which, as Renee's pointed out, as we get more results back from across the state, we're seeing what we already knew, which was that enforcement, punitive measures don't work in solving an issue that is a housing issue. Homelessness exists because there isn't enough housing. And then the ancillary things like substance use, mental health, one experience of unsheltered unhousedness increases your likelihood of PTSD or trauma 6-fold. We're not talking that it is not a fun experience. It fundamentally alters your position going forward and how you're able to walk through this world. Everyone that we see, what I was hoping to talk about was trauma-informed existence, basically. This is the big thing, trauma-informed care, right? This is how we operate. We meet people where they're at. We understand that they are a byproduct of all of their experiences that they've had. And if we can operate understanding that each person we're interacting with, it has an entire world of pain that they may have experienced, then we're able to walk through this world holding space for one another. When we're talking about a housing ordinance and we're not talking about the people that we are housing, I didn't hear once anything about what the people who are going to be living in these want. Why are we not asking? The whole point of the ad hoc committee, I thought, was to include people with lived experience, was to include clinicians, was to include folks who work with these populations every single day and hear a voice of the community. There's so much top-down happening here. How often are we successful in top-down efforts? This is something that we're just losing so much by not including these voices of people who are smart, who are capable, who have so much to offer. We're not just handing out to people. We're building community with people who have so much to give us. So
Thank you, Amy.
please.
Thank you. Anyone else in chambers that wants to comment on non-agenda items? Come on up. Hi there, welcome. Let me put that up for you a little bit.
How are you all doing tonight?
Good, good. Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Dawn, not like our fine president, but like the sun coming up. Right now in our fine county of Humboldt, we have $1 billion that has been voted on by everybody here for art and music in our TK through 12th grade programs. To date, we have zero new art or music teachers hired at a credential salary. We have the population of artists. I, for one, am a master in education with my visual art degree in TK through 12th grade. However, there are many, many loopholes. So what we have is everybody in the bottom and everyone at the very top all in agreement on what should be. What we have now, instead of art and music teachers, are 33 new superintendent principals. Now, this makes sense when you're in Trinity County and schools are 30, 60, 90 miles apart. This does not make sense when you have clutters of schools over here. There are many illusions and sort of little jokes here. Art on the walls, after school art programs, ink people, $900 for 6 months of 8 classes. But what we are not doing here in Humboldt is following the law. So right now in Public Employment Relation Board, I have 3 lawsuits going. One against HCOE, Davy Huey's. You can't sue the guy, you sue the county. Ferndale Unified School District, and the most powerful union in this country, the Teachers Union Association. So what is the solution to all of this? We're not going to figure that out. Our children are. And how do we give them the tools to figure that out? We do like Hoopa does. We actually hire full-time credentialed art teachers for our students, because that is how we teach creativity and logic. And that's how we create people with solutions to actually be people who want to be doing things. People who are not addicted to drugs generally have art and music in schools. 90% of all students who have art and music in schools go on to own homes by 40. If you do the math, 10% of those without. So check the stats, check what's going on in this county, because right now we have the solution, we voted on it, and all we need is enforcement. So I ask you today to look into that. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you, Dawn. That's too high. That's perfect. Hello.
Good evening. Didn't you know that April is also Autism Awareness Month? 90% of autistic women are victims of sexual violence. A harmful misconception about autism is that we lack empathy, when in fact, many of us feel as viscerally as sensory input. Standing up for yourself effectively is a far greater challenge when you experience firsthand the emotions of an assailant. Differences in social reasoning, missing contextual clues, literal thinking, and shutdowns under stress increase risk. But I believe part of that alarming statistic is because while sexual assault is highly underreported, once autistic survivors understand it was a crime, we're less likely to comprehend the social decorum that inhibits reporting. When your senior IT analyst used his work phone to record me in intimate situations against my consent, just as he regarded every no as a polite suggestion, I was treated as if I was wildly overreacting. He and his boyfriend told me that nothing he did to me was as abhorrent as describing his actions in plain language. No elaboration, it's just common sense. So I didn't speak about it again for over a year until a counselor told me what he did was a crime. Up to 60% of autistic people develop PTSD during our lifetimes, compared with about 4% of the general population, due to how we encode memory with more intensity. Yet trauma therapy fails us because our neurological differences are excluded in research. I envy those who respond to trauma by forgetting. I am aware of what he did to me every waking moment because my brain literally cannot reconcile it. But my neurology is a strength because I cannot comprehend the unspoken social contract designed to protect offenders. Research shows that 1 in 3 men who say they would never rape bravely admit they would force someone to have sex if they knew they could get away with it? Why is the social stigma of words like rape more horrifying than the violation of another human? Because men only listen to other men and to institutions, not to people like me. But other men are silent, and institutions feel no more responsibility than making empty proclamation once a year. Thanks to the North Coast Rape Crisis Team before their budget was cut, and Derek Howard's criminal defense attorney, you had his admission to police that I did not consent to what he did to me with his work phone that you allowed him full reign of while acting as his own oversight. Yet you gave the phone back to him, chose to confirm his belief that it wasn't a big deal, and refused to meet with survivor advocacy partners. Mayor, I feel physically ill to hear you claim the values of the NCRCT, given what you chose not to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, is there anyone else in chambers who would like to comment on public comment? Do you see anybody on Zoom?
Nick? Nick?
Hey everyone, can you hear me?
Yes.
Welcome.
All right. Thank you. Hi everyone, my name is Nick Saris. I live down on 2006 I Street in Ward 3. I spoke at the last meeting, but there was a whole lot on the agenda and we didn't really have a lot of time to go over new issues. So I wanted to come here again to talk about board and commission scheduling, especially concerning safety. Right now, the city's handbook basically allows boards and commissions to set their own schedules as long as they meet once a month. And that's a great schedule for most of them. But when it comes to boards and commissions that deal with critical infrastructure or safety issues, I just don't think once a month is enough. Up to 12 meetings in the whole year just isn't enough to take on some of the big problems we're facing. For example, we had a traffic fatality all the way back in February, and the TSC has not had the chance to meet yet. There's been no opportunity to even discuss the issue or steps we could take to prevent it in the future. With 12 meetings a year, if even one fails to meet quorum, even rarely, huge gaps are introduced into the schedule, and productivity grinds to a halt. I would propose amending the handbook to require at least 2 monthly meetings for boards and commissions dealing with critical issues, especially safety. I think this would be a great step that would help our officials take more effective action on the issues facing our community, immediately, effectively, and most importantly, without spending any money. That's all I had to go over. Again, my name is Nick Saris. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Nick.
Did the other one go away? They were. Yeah.
Do you see anyone else?
They had their hand up. Public commenter. No, they're gone.
Okay. Well, then we'll close the public comment and we will move to council reports. And we'll start with Councilmember Contreras-Deloach.
I feel like I've already talked so much tonight. Okay, so I went out and did my final tour, or not my final, but most recent tour of Building Lives by Building Structure in Humboldt Havens out at the Hupa Tribe. It's really cool, you guys. You should go out there. And they're really excited to show people what they're doing, so they love when people come out. I also attended the Tay Open House, Transition Age Youth, and got to watch a presentation by their Youth Advisory Board. It was really good. It was really great. And it was nice to get to, meet everybody and what they're trying to do and just kind of the positivity and support in that realm, for this young group of people. Went to the Access Humboldt Sunny Awards. I also attended the Humboldt Autism Alliance's Easter event. Fundraising and attendance to their events and stuff like that is near and dear to my heart. Multiple children on the spectrum, and so I just, really appreciate the things that they do, because we can't go to regular movie theaters, we can't take our kids to see Santa, we can't take our, and so they're making sure we actually get to do that stuff in a way that our kids feel safe and comfortable doing, because they would be overwhelmed otherwise. And you really realize how few spaces exist for disabled people when you have them in your life. Went to the Leadership Redwood Coast Mixer. I got to meet a lot of people that were very excited about attending this latest cohort. and other people that had gone through it. Nancy Olson and everybody over at the chamber is doing incredible work in getting leadership, developed in this area. And then I also got to go to Scott Hammond does this Humboldt Heroes thing once a month where he honors veterans, and this is an increasingly small group. But this one was for Dr. Baradell, and I don't know if you guys know about him, but he was a physician here, but he led an absolutely incredible life and has done so much service. And there was actually a write-up about him, and it was really incredible. So I've only gone to one other one because it's always at a time that's hard for me to make. I was really glad I got to make this one. He's just literally spent his life in service to other people and making their lives better, and a remarkable person. So that's my report.
Thank you. Councilmember Bauer.
Thank you, Mayor. I do have some travel to report. I went to Costa Mesa for the Cal City's Environmental Quality Policy Committee, and not a lot to report other than there's a couple thousand bills we're all tracking, and we're focused on environment and bills that affect our environment. So we watch those and figure out how they affect our cities. More to come on that at a later date. I attended a Redwood Rising presentation at the zoo. So the zoo has a monthly, I think, presentation by somebody in the community, and Redwood Rising, if you haven't checked it out, I think you could just type in Redwood Rising on Google. They're doing massive forest restoration up north of us in Redwood National Park. Very cool work they're doing, trying to bring back old growth forests from logged over stands of timber. I attended the Humboldt Sunshine Week event, which was super fun, recognizing journalists in the community that are doing work to, inform us and inform the community. It was a great event. Sorry I missed the perilous plunge. Had a little back injury. I'm not trying to get out and say that's the truth. I also attended Councilmember Fernandez's town hall, which was great. There we go. Attended a town hall with Councilmember Fernandez, which was awesome. I attended the Central Labor Council Awards dinner, which was also a great time. I went to the Eureka Trash Bash this past weekend, and Pack Out's doing a great job. And I think there was 50 people there or something. Great turnout. Trails looking amazing. So that was a lot of fun. I also went for a little ride along with one of our park rangers, just kind of checking out the waterfront and seeing what they're doing. They're doing a great job of really cleaning up the waterfront. So appreciate them. Oh, and I want to shout out too. I stopped by the care office and met Oscar, great guy, and it was fun to kind of just chat about what he's doing for our community. So I really appreciate it, and I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Fernandez.
Thank you, Councilmember Bauer, having my town hall go from great to awesome, just in one sentence. I appreciate it. I am appreciative of the folks that did attend. The subject was on our upcoming budget process, and thank you staff and thank you Mayor as well for attending. Let's see, our 2x2 for the Humboldt Community Services District was rescheduled. Same for our 2x2 with Eureka City Schools. I unfortunately missed out on my ride along with EPD because of a scheduling snafu on my part, so I'm trying to reschedule that now. And then along with the mayor, I attended the Eureka Theater's acceptance of their T-Mobile Hometown Grant. So that was a nice little shindig and an opportunity for them. I think it's an award of $49,000, $50,000. Yeah, so that's great for that particular piece of memorabilia that we have here in town. And then, like Councilmember Bauer, attended the Humboldt Del Norte County or Humboldt Del Norte Labor Central Labor Council dinner on Farm Workers Day, and they recognized Shira Moore from AFSCME as the Union Member of the Year. Let's see, the Union of Distinction this year was United Food and Commercial Workers Local 5, and then the Community Partner of the Year was the Operating Engineers Federal Credit Union. So, and they had a new award for Senator McGuire this year as a Friend of Labor as well. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Moulton.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't have any travel to report. Have been kind of busy though. I was very sad to miss that dinner, but my kid had a cold. I had a back injury. No, I'm just kidding. I've been serving a rare stint on the city's personnel board. Nothing I can talk about, but it's been taking up a good amount of my time. I attended the Humane Society's fundraising dinner, where, speaking of Senator McGuire, he called the mayor and myself up to be embarrassed for the benefit of the dogs, I think, or the benefit of the animals. We did ridiculous dances, but raised some money. I attended the Open Space Parks and Rec meeting. I attended the No Kings rally on the 28th. Good to see the city. Lots of people out there, all with peaceful intentions, but joyful warriors, all of them. I attended the ad hoc committee on AI use by city staff, which is very informative. Arts Alive was really lively this month. And I am looking forward to Planning Commission tomorrow. The Eureka City Schools 2x2 meeting, which was canceled recently, is going to be rescheduled. Congratulations to Jess Pettit, who is newly appointed to that board. I look forward to meeting with her, worked with her before in the community. I think she'll be a real benefit to any organization she works with, but schools in particular. That's all I have to report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Castellano?
Thank you. I attended a special meeting for Humboldt Transit Authority, a meeting around downtown revitalization, the ad hoc AI committee meeting, still part of the NORCAN leadership group, the special meeting of folks working on strategic visioning for Humboldt Waste Management Authority. I met up with Matt Zizek at the operating engineers classroom. Disability Pride planning meeting is going to take place on the same day as Get Out and Play Day this year, which will be really cool. So end of July. I did travel to Costa Mesa to chair the Housing, Community, and Economic Development Policy Committee meeting down there. I attended the Humboldt Del Norte Central Labor Council dinner. A Tres Hermanas dinner put on by Keller Maiz, Akili Mitzli, and Danza Azteca. A fundraiser at the Eureka Theater. I hid Easter eggs at Jefferson. That was really fun. And the Eureka Main Street, the Easter Bunny, I monitored the Easter Bunny while hiding Easter eggs at Jefferson. Obviously. And just because I usually wouldn't bring up specifically my organization here, but it was mentioned by a public commenter in reference to the HCOE, and there was just some misinformation, so I just want to clear that up. The Ink People did partner. It's in the public eye, so this isn't like a secret thing with HCOE to support artists going to schools and districts that aren't large enough to hire an art teacher with the Prop 26 money. And so we're partnering with them to help facilitate connections for artists and culture keepers, teaching five workshops, not 5 months of workshops, for $900. So I just wanted to, it's a big difference in terms of pay equity, so I just wanted to clarify that. And with the idea that they'll then form longer lasting relationships that they could possibly, hopefully hire those teachers for ongoing work. So that's sort of the basis of that program. It's not to get around hiring teachers or anything. So just want to clear that up for folks. And that's some things I've been up to.
Great. Well, thank you, everybody. I have a few things to report. Firstly, if that's a word, I want to announce that on May 9th from 10 to 1, we are having our mental health town hall. It's called Wait, Why Did I Do That? Turning brain science into real life resilience. And we're bringing out Rick Griffin from Arizona. It's going to be a fabulous time. There'll be people tabling. It's a great opportunity for education. It's a kickoff for Mental Health Month. NAMI and DHHS are partnering with us again. So it's going to be great. And we hope that you all put it on your calendar and show up. Let's see. I attended the Seroptimist Awards of Excellence. which was phenomenal. It was for women who have done great things. And our own Corey Watson, who was with EPD, won the Courage Award. So that was really awesome to watch her get that award. I attended HCOG, where our appeal was denied for the RENA, but we have some strategies for future numbers. So that's where we're at with that. Anyway, we'll move on. Sunshine Awards I attended, and it was great. It was with Access Humboldt. Mark Larson with the Journal. I don't know if any of you know him, but he is almost 80 or is 80. He got an award, and so did Izzy from Lost Coast Outpost. So congratulations to both of them. I attended. I said we attended. I looked at Scott, but I attended the Perilous Plunge, 16th year, went in the Bay with President of Positivity, Michelle Whiteley. And this year I won the Distinguished Plunger Award. And I think that's because it's kind of like the lifetime achievement. When you get old, they give you something to be, like that's what you are. And then we got the Kayak Viewer Award, which is pretty cool. I attended helped out with a kinetic sculpture race fundraiser. It was a review. Attended some town hall prep meetings. I attended the elected official meeting, which was interesting. I did Hoops and Heroes, which is law enforcement and Zane Middle School, 8th graders playing basketball. And I have to tell you guys that John Goodman from HBF, Humboldt Bay Fire, that guy can play basketball. That guy's a good basketball player. So that was really cool. I got to be the referee, and since I know so much about basketball, I just blew the whistle a lot for people making too many baskets. It was just a good time to be had by all. Let's see, I did go to the badge pinning for Humboldt Bay Fire. That's always a privilege to be there. I spoke at Humboldt Theater for their T-Mobile grant, and Mario was there. I went to the No Kings rally and saw so many friends out there. I love our community. When we rally, we rally. I attended the Wizard of Paws Galley and was, attempted to be embarrassed by the dear Senator McGuire. To be embarrassed, I dressed up as Glinda, the Good Witch, so I don't know which was more embarrassing, but, that's how we do things. I attended the NAMI board meeting. And I got to do homeless surveys with the EPD. So that was really interesting. I went out with someone from EPD 2 different times and did homeless surveys. And it was great to be able to have those conversations. I attended Gods and Goddesses at Arts Alive this year, put on by Amber Jones. It was an incredible event. All these beautiful people in all these beautiful costumes, fire dancers, burlesque, singing, all kinds of crazy stuff. It was awesome. I attended 2 Pack Out Green Team cleanups, saw Councilmember Bauer he was riding around on the gator, directing people. No, he was actually working too. And then lastly, I got to experience the trail on Easter. And I'll tell you what, you guys, we live in such a beautiful community. And if you haven't been out on the trail this year, I encourage you to get out there. Boy, that's a lot of stuff. Yep. And I'm grateful for every moment of it. So with that, we're going to move on to the consent calendar. All matters listed under this category are considered to be routine by the City Council and will be enacted by one motion. Pursuant to City Council Resolution 2011-22, if a member of the public would like an item on the consent calendar pulled and discussed separately, the request shall be made to a council member prior to the meeting. Unless a specific request is made by a council member, the consent calendar will not be read. There will be no separate discussion of these items. And no one's reached out to me, so if we can get a motion.
We'll move to approve the consent calendar.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Please vote.
5 yes votes, motion carries.
Okay, this moves us to legislative action correspondence. Councilmember Bauer. Anything from this end?
My computer died. You'll have to wait until next.
Okay.
I have all my stuff on there.
Okay.
Nothing pressing.
So nothing pressing at this moment?
No.
Okay. This takes us to ordinances and resolutions. Bill number 1059-CS, Animal ordinance update with City Attorney Black.
Thank you, Mayor. This item, the idea of revising our animal control ordinance really arose when we had a series of cases that were that required hearing. And through that hearing process, we learned that it's not always advisable to immerse your staff, city staff, in playing the role of hearing officer when their own subordinate staff members are, advocating one side of the case versus a citizen. That didn't appear too well, just generically. And so we thought, well, let's build a process where we have these hearings, animal control and other hearings throughout the city structure and throughout the Eureka Municipal Code. So that's where the idea came in. We ended up substantially revising the animal control ordinance to accomplish a number of different things. One of them was just the clarification and correction of various omissions and language difficulties throughout the ordinance. I don't know how many of you have actually looked at some of the lesser strikeouts that appear throughout. But one of the things that my office is doing is making an attempt to democratize the language of our ordinances by stripping out a variety of anachronistic legalisms, words that are just really make legal language verbose and difficult to comprehend. So the idea here is that any citizen can pick this up and find out what's required of them or what the process is for them to enforce their rights. We also have recently encountered an individual case or two involving barking dogs that have annoyed citizens and other noise complaints. So we'll be addressing those more generically, but with respect to barking dogs, we added provisions that allow us to abate that if we have dogs that are, really wearing out their welcome, if you will. I think the chief will address some of the benefits from the provisions that we added relative to dogs at public events, which can be seriously problematic. And up to now, there has been no real guidance, I think, for officers and what kind of citations they can issue. So there are a variety of changes in this ordinance. We hope you find them to be generally beneficial. And later, I think the chief might have a couple words to say, but we will be available to answer questions.
Chief, did you want to say something?
Good evening, everyone. I appreciate the city attorney making this readable for layman's because I didn't understand the thing he just said about making it that way. So, but I understand the ordinance now much better, so I appreciate that.
That was part of my strategy.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So really all I want to say is these changes are simple. They really didn't change the meat of this. And I know when we crafted this several years ago, we put a lot of work in, a lot of community effort into this to make sure that we listened and put things in here that were important and wrote it so that it fit the needs of the department. But as with anything, as time goes on and we experience more things in the public sector, we realize that we didn't make all the right changes or we didn't include all the right things, and how we left barking dogs out, I have no idea. So I'm glad that's been changed. In reference to the permits and dogs that permit or at events, special events, we have seen an increase in permit holders, special event holders that are requesting that animals not be at their permits because they do create some safety issues, including the city at the 4th of July festival. And at a lot of these large events, what we're seeing is we have large crowds, we have kids, we have dogs on leashes. And when every time you put all those things together, we have trip hazards because people get hung up in the leashes, and we have dogs having encounters with other animals or other dogs, and that creates a safety issue. So this allows us, when a special event permit comes through and they request not to have any dogs at their event, this gives guidance to the city on the post signs, how to help the organizers do that, but also gives guidance and the authority for the officers, the animal control officers, to be able to enforce an actual ordinance to assist those special permit holders to carry out the fact that they don't want animals there, minus the provisions in here that do allow for service animals. So it will make it easier for us, and it will make it clearer for the community as well when it comes to these events and what's expected and what can and cannot be allowed. So I appreciate the city attorney's work on this, as well as the assistant city attorney, and we'll be here to answer any questions you have.
Councilmember Moulton.
All right, thank you, and thank you everyone for your work on this. Appreciate things being more accessible. Wait a second, Chief. Just to, because I had somebody ask a question, and I understand from your answer just now, but just want to highlight the fact that if somebody has a special event and they want to allow dogs, that is okay.
Yes, bark at the park, any of those kind of events that are dog centric, you can still have your dogs. Yes, it'll be up to the permit requester on if they want to have animals at their event or not, and then the city manager can authorize those animals to be there.
And is there any like one sheet somewhere advice for folks about maybe public events in general, but specifically about animals at public events?
So as a part of our special event permit process, that information is handed out to each special event applicant.
And then one more question, Dave. Do we currently have an animal control officer, like a dedicated officer?
Yes, we do. We've had one for almost a full year now, and she is very good at her job. She loves it, and this is why some of these things are coming up, because we're able to go out and actually do the job of the animal control officer, answer the concerns of our community members and residents, and this is what's bringing some of these issues up, because we're actually trying to address some of the issues in our community right now.
Very good to hear. Thank you.
Councilmember Fernandez.
Yeah. In that same vein, then I know we're discussing special events, but what about any of these more impromptu that have been occurring, like at the courthouse? You know, I haven't seen too many folks with dogs, but I've seen them.
So that is a First Amendment event, and as such, it's not required to have a permit. And if they would, they'd have to go through the county to have a permit for that event on the county's property.
Okay.
We have had 2 different incidents in the last probably 3 protests. Dogs either attacking another dog or biting an individual on the sidewalk. And again, you have small spaces, people trying to stay off the roadway, dogs there. We've had a couple of run-ins. Nothing we've had reports on, because by the time we get there, they've been resolved and moved on. Okay. But we have had those complaints brought up to us.
Okay. And then this question probably goes to the city attorney. Looking at nuisance animal, I see we've struck out substantially and gone with unreasonably. What was the linguistic flair there? Oh, sorry. I think it's page 7. What am I looking at here? Oh, yeah, in definitions, yeah.
Oh, I had that too.
So substantially and unreasonably are just kind of 2 different things.
Mhm.
Unreasonable is a standard that is often applied when you're... Substantial is a standard that's often applied in legal prohibitions, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And it's used when there's like a fine distinction made, and you really have to rely on the hearing officer or the person who's making the judgment call. Unreasonably is just a little bit easier and more common standard to enforce. That's all.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Councilmember Castellano.
Thank you. Yeah, and thank you for all of your work on this. This is kind of just a silly question, but I was curious. The January 1st, 1960 date for dairies is why that date?
I suspect that there was an ordinance regulating dairies that was passed back in around 1960.
Okay. And are there,
and it's been carried forward. I would have taken that out, except I didn't know and wasn't sure it was worth my time to find out whether there is still a dairy in existence today that was here in 1960. I suspect not, but I just left it in because if so, that dairy, we wanted to grandfather them going all the way back to 1960, and
Right.
I wouldn't take that away from them.
Neither would I. Yeah, and I was curious if there was still an active
I thought there
dairy
would
or
be
not.
consensus around that.
Yeah, and I was glad that you did make a caveat for animals used for performances or for display in the events one. Anyway, I thought that was interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I'm glad. By the way, I want to comment. I'm glad the chief did bring up that this ordinance was very substantially revised roughly 5 years ago, I would say. And at that time, some of the very specific references to exotic animals, to, miniature pigs, to goats, all of those things were brought into the regulatory environment by the people that worked on this back then. And I think they did a great job. And all of that's been preserved and deserves to be continued forward. Ideas like cat fanciers, I mean, who would have thought, right? But if there are people who have a lot of cats, they could be taking very good care of them. It doesn't mean that they're hoarders or something like that. So, we've tried to set this ordinance up so that it provides a reasonable regulation across the board and is something everybody can live with on both sides of the coin. The people that are concerned about their own enjoyment of life and not being bothered by other people's animals, people that are concerned about the welfare of animals, people that just love animals or certain animals and want to care for them. Everybody's provided for, and let's just all get along. That's what we're.
Thanks, Bob.
Oh, and the final thing, Chief mentioned the work of Greg Holtz, who did very substantial work on this ordinance as well. So,
Okay. Any questions down here? I was reminded of the snakes.
Yeah.
Great. If there's no further questions, we'll open this item up for public comment. Is there anyone in chambers that would like to comment on this item? Seeing no one, is there anyone online?
I see no one online.
Okay, well, we'll close the public comment and bring it back to council for comments and a motion. For motion and a comments. Motion and comments.
Yeah, I'll approve. Do I need to read it like verbatim? Then I have to make my way back to that. I'll hold on a sec.
I can make the motion. Okay.
Councilmember Castellano.
and I appreciate the inclusive language of people who are unhoused too in this. And with that, I move to waive full read by title only and introduce an ordinance amending Title 9, Chapter 91, Sections 91.101 through 91.1105, and adding Sections 91.206 and 91.1106 of the Eureka Municipal Code to update animal regulations, incorporate uniform administrative hearing procedures, and regulate the presence of dogs and other domestic animals as designated city-sponsored events, and set the ordinance for adoption at the next regular city council meeting.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Are there any further comments?
Yeah.
Councilmember Fernandez?
Yeah. and again, city attorney, let's see, looking at the definition for special event, it refers you to section 96.01 ex sequitur. And I'm curious if that was a misprint or if there is a section 9601 that wasn't part of this. Because the special events language takes you to 91.1106, I think.
Again, are we in the definition?
Yes.
And this would be the definition of special event?
Yeah.
It's possible there is a typo.
And that's what I wanted to make sure is that we correct that. So
Yeah. Thank you for that. So my recollection is that we agree now that if that is a typo, that it will be corrected when it's returned to you for adoption.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Any further comments? Please vote.
5 yes votes, motion carries.
Great. This moves us to Bill number 1058-CS TOT ordinance update with City Attorney Black.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, this is an ordinance partially triggered by the enactment of the Administrative Hearing Procedure Ordinance, but also by the fact that we are attempting to streamline and create expedited and efficient enforcement opportunities for the city if someone is failing to pay their transient occupancy tax. We've had some recent instances, and I think there are some outstanding cases of people who are operating vacation rentals, short-term rentals that are not paying their TOT. I think we have somewhere on the order of 8 to 10 cases that we're aware of. How many? 20, excuse me. And so those 20 cases, we want to be able to move on those. One of the changes that we're making here is to have an expedited process after we have adjudicated the amount of the debt that has gone unpaid to the city, that we are able to lien the real property involved. One of the things we encountered with one of our cases was that there was a tenant operating a very active Airbnb process in the unit they were renting. The landlord was not even aware of their business activity. So we did create a situation where, the dilemma posed by that was that under the ordinance as it existed, we were not able to declare the owner to be an operator and to actually enforce against the real property. We could have sued the tenant for a personal debt, but we would not have been able to lien the real property as things stood. So we have amended this ordinance to declare it a public nuisance for anybody, for an owner to operate, be an operator of an Airbnb or a process that requires TOT to be paid to the city. And so we've just enhanced the enforceability to the benefit of city staff not having to file a lawsuit, go to court, possibly engage in a trial or discovery leading up to a trial.
Councilmember Fernandez?
So it's my understanding then that this, currently is a bit of a convoluted process. And we're trying to uncluster that a bit, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And so is there any mechanism for someone then to say like, hey, they're moving the goalpost and I shouldn't have to pay this now? Is there any?
No.
Okay.
So it's a general principle that substantive law cannot be retroactively enforced. So like if we increase the TOT, we wouldn't be able to apply that to February rentals, but only to April and going forward. Remedies usually are allowed to be applied retroactively.
Okay.
And so that's, we don't expect to experience a problem there.
Okay. I thank you for that.
Sure.
Any other questions? Councilmember Moulton?
I'm just curious, because you gave a specific example. If a tenant is using their rental as a vacation rental and isn't paying the tax, and then we go after the landlord, the owner, presumably they wouldn't have known. Could the landlord then sue the tenant to make to get
Yes.
them to pay. So that's how they could fix that. So we've moved the necessity of suing the person from us to them by covering them under the ordinance.
Yes.
Okay, that makes sense.
And just for council's information, that particular instance that City Attorney Black is referring to was a commercial spot that had a sublease of rental units up above, and that person who rented out the commercial spot and the other units was using those other units as VRBOs. It wasn't like a complete sublease out. There was multiple units that the tenant was not using, and the remainder of the units, they were subleasing those out for VRBOs.
And we find this out by looking for a vacation rental, right? We just
So
go
we've
look
hired
online.
a third party that has been tracking this for 3 years now, I believe. 2 to 3 years, ever since we passed the requirement to have them permitted.
So it would benefit landlords to occasionally look up their own house on Verbo.
Yes, I'm sure. Or have solid language on your sublease, if you allow sublease, and if you do allow sublease, what those parameters are. Yeah.
Interesting. Thank you.
Okay, seeing no further questions, we'll open this item up to public comment. Is there anyone in chambers who'd like to comment on this item? Wow, seeing no one, we'll bring it over to Zoom. Is anybody on Zoom?
I see no one on Zoom.
So we'll bring it back to council for a motion and discussion. Councilmember Fernandez.
Yeah, I've got this one in front of me. I move to waive full reading, read by title only, and introduce an ordinance amending Title 3, Chapter 35 of the Eureka Municipal Code, amending sections 35.070 through 35.084, bringing into compliance the transient occupancy tax provision, and set the ordinance for adoption at the next regular city council meeting.
Second.
Any further discussion? Please vote.
5 yes votes, motion carries.
Great. And at this time, we're going to take a 5-minute break, 6-minute break. We'll see you around 8. With the transportation safety protocols with City Engineer Willer. There he is.
Thank you, Mayor Burgell and Council. Yes, this evening I'm here to give you a presentation on transportation safety. There was requested by Council Member Contreras-Deloach to have a presentation on emergency streets. So I'll cover emergency streets. I'll give, but I think it would be prudent also to give an overview of what the city's approach is for education. Talk a little bit about some collision data for the city, and then also talk about the regional Vision Zero plan that the city of Eureka is participating in, to give you an idea of kind of some of the activities that are going on out there from transportation safety planning. So to start with, emergency streets. Here is some snippets from the website. The location, the website is called Emergency Streets. I put the website up here if anybody's interested in going out and checking out what they have to offer there. I pulled some information off of their first couple home pages here. You can see here, the first quote here says, emergency streets recast traffic violence not as an inevitable series of isolated events, but rather as an ongoing public health crisis to be treated systematically, starting with reduced kinetic energy as a core aim. So I think the intent here is to really start to look at, from their standpoint, to look at transportation safety as a ongoing public health crisis, clearly, and to slow vehicles down around fatal collisions. Again, below, Emergency Streets empowers public officials to act, not lament. Here's another quote off of their website. Traffic violence is outstripping local, regional, and federal efforts to reduce injuries, deaths. Despite a renewed awareness of the issue in traffic planning circles, people are being killed in America's roadways in mounting numbers, about 40,000 people every year, comparable to other public health crises such as gun suicides, drug overdoses, and the height of the AIDS epidemic. So what is Emergency Streets? What do they propose? So they propose a response. The response is fairly straightforward. They want would have a rapid, visible response to fatal traffic collisions. So this would not only be every collision, this would be fatal traffic collisions. This response would have to be within 48 hours of the collision. The governing jurisdiction would install temporary traffic control devices to slow cars down by 20 miles per hour or down to a minimum of 20 miles per hour. So if you were in a 70 mile per hour highway, you could reduce it down to 50 or 50 down to 30 and so on. Within a half-mile radius of the collision and signal that the road is under investigation. These installations would remain in place for 2 weeks, and the installations are intended to treat crashes as public health emergencies. Here are a few, off of their website, here are a few of their traffic control devices that they recommend. As you can see, it's to try to very much draw attention to the location where you have words, speaking to either the fact that a fatal crash occurred in this area or that there's an ongoing investigation of it. There's opportunities for delineators or barrels or other infrastructure to be installed in the street. The whole idea behind that is to slow people down and to make them aware that the fatality has taken place and that this is something that's, as a society, that we need to address. In reviewing this response, I think we as a city have some concerns in some cases. The protocol calls for immediate traffic control implementation that is intended to stay in place for 2 weeks. We know whenever we have to do traffic control that we need to have an approved plan that is approved by a traffic engineer and that meets in compliance with the MUTCD standards. Anything outside the MUTC standards create driver confusion and increases liability for the city. So all of our construction projects, we have traffic control. All those have approved traffic control plans to make sure that they're in compliance with MUTCD standards, as an example. The protocol calls for a half-mile radius for speed reductions up to 20 miles per hour below posted speed limits down to 20 miles per hour. This would require significant advanced warning signage, covering posted speed signs and placing new speed signs. Half-mile radius is roughly a 9-block radius. So if you can think, it's a very large area to have to try to immediately respond with traffic control devices. Having this wide area blanketed with signage and speed changes can lead to increased distraction and confusion. Typically in transportation and traffic engineering planning, you try to be consistent and provide a steady response so that the public understands what's happening with the change. And I think this is much more on the standpoint coming from trying to draw attention and trying to make a change in the speed limit that draws attention to the issue. But definitely some concerns there. Failures to have all of the signage in place correctly could lead to non-compliance with MUTCD if their signs aren't put up in the right spacing or the right signs used. In both cases, there is, again, an increased risk to the city. Distraction, as you can imagine, could also be very much when you have signs kind of bringing to attention that there was a fatality there, whether that's a message board or chalk paint on the ground or signage. That could be very distracting for drivers on the roadways. That could, again, contribute to additional incidents. It could also, from the standpoint of the city's risk, the temporary installation could be used as from plaintiff's attorneys to help portray site as dangerous condition, potentially making claims more difficult to defend and increasing settlement exposure beyond what might otherwise be warranted. When you're doing something this significant as far as like reducing speeds 20 miles per hour, or in the city streets, maybe that only comes down to by 5, 10, or 15, given that where our speeds are already set for our roadways. That, as we well know, like it'll push traffic onto different roadways. So there's the risk of other roadways being seeing a lot more volume of traffic as people try to avoid areas in order to get to where they're going without having to go through like a neck down area. And the final concern here, typically when we do engineering, design, and planning for transportation safety, and we review collisions and we look at potential ways to fix any issues that might come through that, we kind of do a review of data, and that data we get from the California Crash Reporting System. That data is brought together with CHP and other California agencies, and we use that data to come up with, in conjunction with that data, we look at a TIMS network, which is a mapping system that's also used statewide to look at hotspots and to identify areas where, hey, we have collisions happen on more frequent basis at this intersection or that intersection. There's different types of collisions that take place. What are the things that might need to be happen here in order to make a plan come to fruition and fix a problem. In this case, it's very much a reactionary event, and it's not really informed by data. It's more just reacting to the event. Our approach is very standard. It's very data driven and legally defensible. Immediately after a collision, the engineering typically receives notification that this happens. Usually within a 12-hour period, we hear about it. Sometimes in the middle of the night, you don't hear about it immediately, but the next day, we definitely get notification of it. We reach out and coordinate with EPD to get some information without having the time to get to the site immediately. We definitely do make our way out to the sites when within a reasonable amount of time and take a look at what happened there and evaluate the situation to see if there are any short-term issues that need to be addressed. Like what was this collision? What caused this collision? Is there anything that could happen that we can make a change on immediately to try to remedy that situation? Eventually, when the detailed collision summary report is released by EPD, we also evaluate that to make sure that we understand the full picture of what's happened. Our long-term approach is periodically reviewing collision data from the CCRS system. We use the TIMS Transportation System Injury Mapping System to review hotspots, really look at collections of collisions and to understand, what caused those collisions. We determine if specific network changes are necessary to address safety issues. If those modifications are necessary and relatively small in magnitude, i.e. we have the resources to be able to make that change at the time, then we try to make those changes if possible. If the required modification are large in magnitude, or it's a network-wide or a portion of the transportation network, then we often have to put together a project and actually chase funding sources that we can fund a larger project, such as those funding sources typically come through the Highway Safety Improvement Program, HSIP, or another one that's available out there is the Safe Streets for All. Some examples of short-term projects that we've implemented are traffic signals, the flashing yellow arrows that you see at a couple of our intersections. Those are implemented without a large grant. The yellow reflective tape around the signal heads, really calling attention to the signals so that people don't just blow through a signalized intersection, which definitely is a thing that happens. Retiming intersections to change phasing to create more safe movements. That's something that our staff we can work on those things and make those changes. Signage or striping modifications or installation that help either clarify or highlight or change a situation that might make it more safe. Long-term projects that you're probably aware of, the H&I Street lane reduction with the inclusion of bike lanes, bulb outs, high visibility crosswalks, the Boone Street safety improvements. That project included high visibility crosswalks and bulb outs. There's a project, another HSIP funded project for bulb outs at various sites around the city that kind of matched a pattern of collisions that we were able to get that funding for. Traffic signal modernization. So this one hasn't gone into place yet, but that's to kind of retrofit a number of our signals with mast arms that actually go up over the roadway and put the signal head out in front of the road versus the pedestal style where the signal pedestal is just on the side. So it's less right in the view of the traffic. So that's one that we are hoping to implement in the next year. Beta Zoo, again, this is another future one. We have a HSIP funding to help fund that project for the roadway crossing improvements at McFarland, Boone, and on Harris. And then this is a bit of an older one, but we did participate on the Broadway Multimodal Corridor feasibility study, which was funded by a Caltrans planning grant. To really, that project was very much focused on safety improvements through the Broadway corridor. Caltrans is implementing some of those projects. Currently, they've started construction on the south end of the corridor with their Complete Streets project that goes between Herrick up to I think Truesdale. And then the middle couplet is in some sort of form of programming in Caltrans, and the Coster couplet has been through a project study report with them. Switching gears to some of our data, we recently pulled 5 years of data since the Emergency Streets focuses on fatalities. We wanted to give you an idea of what the data looks like currently. So for Eureka, there are 17 total fatalities in the last, and not necessarily the last 5 years, but from January 1st, 2021 through the end of 2025. So that 5-year period. We don't have all the information clearly for 2026. So those are the years of the data that we have currently. As you'll notice, 12 of those occurred on the state highway system. So a vast majority of the fatalities that happen in Eureka happen in Caltrans right away, primarily on Broadway, but also 4th and 5th and 255. We have 4 on city streets, and then one, I wouldn't necessarily call it an outlier, but a strange occurrence where there was somebody drove onto the unfinished Elk River Estuary Trail in the middle of the night and crashed off the side of the road during construction. So to switch gears again and talk about planning and what things are actually in process right now. Again, we are a member of HCOG, and we are working with them on a regional Vision Zero action plan. In this case, we received funding for the plan. We hired a consultant, and the consultant has been doing work to prepare the plan. Some of the data that we'll show here is not final data, but I wanted to give you an idea of what the plan and the data looks like. This is looking regionally at Humboldt County, looking at our data from the standpoint of PDO, which is property damage only, injury data, and then fatalities. So you'll see from 2000, this study looked at a 7-year period between 2018 and 2024. You'll see that in 2018, just to focus on fatalities as we are tonight, there were 26, and we've kind of seen those numbers fluctuate into 2024 where there are 25. So roughly between 15 and 27 is the range in the last 7 years per year for fatalities across the entire county. This graphic shows collision information by jurisdiction for the county. Eureka is highlighted. Here in the 7-year period, you'll see 25 fatalities, 1,253 injuries, and then pedestrian and bicycle data at the bottom with 195 pedestrian and 93 cycle collision types. They rank the top 10 intersections for injuries. And the reason why they do that is because we're trying to get to a point where we can evaluate these intersections or roadway segments and come up with countermeasures. So, as a region, we're gonna identify areas that need to be fixed, and what are those fixes? What makes the most sense? Working with a team of transportation engineers who does this day in and day out. So this is the top 10 injury intersections. You'll see Eureka an awful lot on this list, and you also notice that there's a lot of 4th, 5th, and US 101, 4th, 5th Broadway. US 101 Broadway. The majority of, again, our collisions are on the state highway system. There is one noted on here that is not, and that would be H Street and Henderson. The Vision Zero plan also looks at injuries, and it looks at equity. So it looks at overlapping planning boundaries for different disadvantaged communities, where those collisions are taking place, and where those high injury networks are, so that you can plan accordingly to help identify areas where you may need to apply more countermeasures in a disadvantaged area. And that's part of the analysis. Again, this is pretty preliminary, and we're hoping to get a lot more analysis as to what this means for us. One thing that came out of the Vision Zero plan also was to do a pilot project to locally test a traffic camera. So traffic cameras are, at their very basis, used to as a detection for a traffic signal. So typical detection for a traffic signal would be traffic loops in the street. You've probably seen the circles that you drive over. Those basically, your car acts as like a big mass going across those traffic circles, and it tells the signal there's a car here, or in a bike lane it might say there's a bike here if there is a bicycle circle there. Not all intersections are able to detect cyclists, however. Traffic cameras allow us to detect everything that goes through the intersection. So pedestrians, cyclists, they can really hit all legs of the intersection very cleanly. They can also reach out and get more advanced detection, which traffic loops aren't always able to do. So they're looking off in the distance, and they can start to, say, oh, there's a vehicle coming, and the light could be changed to green if they're, if that was a phase that worked in the traffic signal timing. They also could collect an amazing amount of traffic data that could be very beneficial to the city. Traffic collection data such as speeds, traffic volumes through intersections, turning movement counts, so all the directions that traffic's turning. They also do a much better job at catching multimodal. Like right now, we don't know how, on a given day, how many pedestrians are crossing at certain intersections. We have to send an engineering technician out there to sit there and tally, like how many people are crossing the street, how many bikes are coming through. Traffic cameras can kind of hit a little bit of everybody, whether it's bikes, peds, or folks rolling through those intersections. Another thing that I find that can be very, very valuable to us is looking at near misses. We get collision reports when collisions happen. So we get a report, what happens. There's often, something that comes of that, a piece of data that we can get our hands on. Near misses, they happen all the time, and we would never know what they are. The camera, we've seen kind of presentations on what that looks like, where there might be a specific turning movement that is happening. Maybe it's a little bit back from the intersection. It's not necessarily resulting in a collision, but it's an unsafe behavior. It's erratic behavior, but it might be caused in some way, shape, or form how that intersection is lined up and how it's working. So it gives you a little bit more data than you could potentially hope to have if you didn't have a camera, and you just wouldn't have that information. Again, it would also have video of collisions, so you could review the collisions and understand exactly what happened there. So that's one kind of interesting thing that's coming out of this plan that we'll continue to evaluate as we move forward. There will be a number of pop-up demonstrations that will come out of this that are being paid for by the grant. Here in the city of Eureka, we'll have a couple of mini roundabouts that will be installed. So we're being funded to put in the pop-up demonstrations. So these are not intended to necessarily be out there for just a short period of time. They're kind of intended to be out there as long as the traffic control devices could be in place safely and operating, where they weren't being either destroyed, moved, or causing other hazards. So very small installations. Typically, in our case, these mini roundabouts will be looking at residential streets, areas that might be good for slowing down traffic within a residential street landscape. Another thing that's coming out of this, there will be a Vision Zero dashboard where people will be able to go and look at data for our area. That'll probably be a way for people to put input in there as well. So a little bit of input, and then also to be able to just take a look at what data looks like in our area. This is definitely still part of the study that hasn't been completed yet. It's in works, but it's coming. So, what might that look like is something that'll be interesting to see. But another way that we can look at, have data available for folks to be able to understand what collisions and transportation safety look like here in Eureka and regionally. And that is all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions. Does anybody have questions? Okay. Can I ask my questions and then I'll ask your questions? Just this one time. So I was curious, when you said 4th, 5th US 101 intersections, are they just random intersections, or are there, and I saw R Street was one of the intersections, but are there specific locations that are worse than others?
Yes, I think there are. When you look at not just fatalities, but you look at serious injury collisions as well, and property damage only, you get a much bigger picture of like all the collision volumes. So it depends on how you look at it a little bit, how you cut the data up. But yeah, there are certainly R Street or 255 and 4th. That one is one that the data shows is having a lot of collisions. So that's certainly one on the list. I think it might be the highest on the list for intersections. Henderson and Broadway, I think, was another one that popped up quite a few times.
Is that after the modification or before the modification?
That's a good question, because we don't have the data that we were given by the memo that came through the Vision Zero didn't break down every collision. It gave us, kind of the tables that I showed you. So we don't have that data yet. We'll be digging into that sort of thing and really coming up with a plan to work with Caltrans to bring this topic up once again. Okay. As we continue to discuss it with them as well. I mean, this is not a new discussion point between the city of Eureka and Caltrans.
No. Well, I'd be curious to know what those are. And then when you were talking about the roundabouts, Humboldt and G, that's like in the middle of like nothing. Like it's near the high school. Is that the reason that you're thinking of putting it there?
So great question. And yes, if you weren't as familiar with our bicycle master plan, then it would be difficult to know. But we do have a planned bicycle boulevard. It's made up of Humboldt and Hawthorne, I think. And then G Street is also going to be a bicycle boulevard. So it's at an intersection of two bicycle boulevards.
Okay.
Planned that have not been implemented yet.
Gotcha. Okay. It just seemed random.
Yep.
And then with the traffic cameras, are those going to be used for enforcement as well, or just for data?
Just for data, and this is just a pilot program. We would have to evaluate the information that comes out of this, make sure that we felt comfortable making a recommendation to council to move forward with those. There's definitely seems to be some benefits, and I could understand some hesitations as well.
Great. Well, thank you. That was a great presentation. Councilmember Moulton, I think you had your hand up first.
I did. Speaking of hesitations, that's exactly what I wanted to ask about. Traffic cameras. Oh, before I do that, quick pointer as a longtime bike commuter. Those circles in the road are, they're inducted. They operate by inductance. It's the fact that it's a big metal box that's driving over them that causes a little signal to happen, or a little circuit, a little current to move through it. So if you have a bike and you ride a bike, you can put magnets on your bike, and it will cause the inductance switch to trigger on your bicycle. I've seen people out there get off their bike and then jump up and down on it as though somehow it was a weight sensor. But that's not going to help pedestrians unless people start putting magnets in their shoes. But the traffic cameras, it's possible, yeah, waving it around down there. The traffic cameras are recognizing multiple different modes of transportation and traffic patterns. How?
Mm-hmm. So yeah, my understanding, it's a camera, and then it uses, as everything does these days. I partially joke there, but I think AI, type of information to analyze the data, to learn how the intersection, how the turning movements are working. So it's like a regular camera from that standpoint. They can be operate in two different ways. So they can also not just have the camera, which they also can have radar, which radar can, if your camera isn't working for whatever reason, like it's foggy or something like that, radar can also do a similar thing. It doesn't catch the same data as like your peds and bikes and your turning movements, your near misses, your collisions, as well as the camera does. But yeah, so a camera, my understanding, that camera data is given to a program. That program has been set up to analyze this. So like when I've looked at the screen, you're looking at one leg of an intersection. So you're like in the intersection looking upstream. There's the lanes coming at you. There's turning movements happening, and you can see it sped up where you see 200 cars go this direction. You can kind of see how their movements are tracked. They'll have like a line, like a colored line on top of them to see like how those movements. So you have a better understanding as a human visually how they're moving versus like just a flashing photo.
Yeah,
but they kind of give you an idea of what the actual turning movements are. And then it's counting people, bikes. If you set it up to do that, you don't have to have all the bells and whistles going at one time. But that's the way that it was kind of presented to us.
Okay. So is this a third-party system that you'd be purchasing like a subscription or something like that for access to the software?
It is I believe so. So you purchase a camera, and then you have an operating third-party system. They've told us that they don't keep the data or share the data out, if that's where you're going with this.
Oh yeah, I know, we've heard that song before.
Right. No, I'm just telling you that's what they've told us. And again, pilot project. We're not asking for approval on this currently.
But you're gonna put a camera up.
It's already been in operation. So it's been up for a little bit.
Where's that?
6 and I.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Councilmember Castellano?
Thank you. Let's see, excited about the Vision Zero work. I was curious about the emergency streets plan. I definitely heard your concerns, and I was curious related to that though. It seems like there would be the capacity for us to implement some variation on a theme, like perhaps instead of a half-mile radius, a quarter-mile radius or something like that. Do you think some sort of partial implementation may be effective?
I think that you could definitely pare it back. I don't know if I don't think that erases all the concerns that were noted. I think if you're not going out to a half mile, you reduced it down. Yeah, you'd have less signage, less volume of, signage out there in the street, or less effort from staff to have to go out and install signage all around the location. So from that standpoint, I think it would be less effort in that case. I think some of the promotion and the change in speed and those sorts of things would still be there if that would be the case of moving it ahead in that manner.
Mm-hmm. And do we have some of those? We do. Those blinking signs that have memos. Have we tried anything where we put, a sign saying, a fatality occurred here on X date at X time, and kept it up for, a week or something like that?
I'm not aware that we've done that. I don't think since I've been here. So, a little over 10 years.
I think something like that. Yeah.
I don't think there's been a sign depicting that there was a fatal accident there, but we use it for traffic control if there's a reason to use it after. We haven't used it as a notification for that purpose.
So we could conceptually use it for something like that. I would be interested in that, as even just a way of perhaps with more limited staff capacity, kind of just adding into what kind of notifications we give drivers. And then I'm sure you've heard of Street Story. Yeah. It's for folks who haven't heard of it, it's a way that people can report kind of like near misses, collisions, things that may not make it to the surface of getting reported to EPD or something like that. Have we ever, I don't know. I feel like it's one of those things that's useful if people use it, right? But it's not so useful if, only a few people use it. Have we ever kind of advertised that or shared that as a resource?
Yeah. Sorry, I'm getting a little raspy. Yeah, we, when we did our bike master plan, we definitely had, we promoted the use of Street Story. It definitely has a place, to kind of fill in the gaps of where we might not have collision data for whatever reason. Excuse me. But so we definitely promoted it through that avenue. So all of our different public outreach meetings that we did, all of our content, we definitely had that as one of the ways that not only could we use that data in order to inform decisions, but also to encourage people to use it.
And we found when we did promote it that people increased the usage of it and it was useful.
That I'm not sure about.
Okay. But you looked at the data that people reported after they used it, or?
Well, it's kind of hard to, I guess it would be hard to say, like, once we promoted it, if there was an uptick in how much information was going on, if that was like directly related to our outreach.
Yeah. I guess, to get to the point the point I think that exists in my brain around this is that it seems like it could be useful to periodically promote that in general, just as another resource for us to learn more about accidents, especially those near misses, I think are something that, I think we've all experienced that, where I was crossing the street and it was a close one, and, which could have been a fatal collision or could have, and for sure it's good that people are nimble and, but I think that also tells us a lot about kind of, there's probably, I would imagine there's also some data though around like for every collision there's, 100 near misses or so, I don't know, or, every fatality there's 100 near misses. I would be curious about that, but anyway. Thank you.
Councilmember Bauer?
Yeah, I'd be curious, a couple of opinions, really. I mean, I see people do crazy stuff too, crossing the street 100 feet from a crosswalk, wearing all black at night. There's those kind of things that I've almost hit people, so there's people that make poor decisions. But I'd be curious to know what Chief Citro, what you think, like how would a fatality, having a sign fatality, how does that affect staff when they have to see that after a recent incident?
Yeah, so for the fatal collisions we go on, again, a lot of them are 4th, 5th, and Broadway, which was demonstrated through the data. But I can think of a couple in my career that have been very, I don't know what the word is, what we call critical calls, or calls that require critical incident stress debriefings and things like that, where they're, not really good things that we don't want to be reminded of where that happened. I've worked in the streets of Eureka for 30 years, and I can look at an intersection or a location or a house and think of every horrible call I've been on there. It would be kind of a reminder. I don't think it's a deterrent if it's a safety issue, but it definitely would, have an effect on the responders. Like, oh yeah, I went on that 2 weeks ago. It's sign's still there. Oh, that was a month ago. It's kind of a reminder to us that we already know about, but a big flashing sign saying there was a fatal accident. It's interesting. Usually you see it on the highways. You see the roadside memorials. I drive by a lot of those that I've been involved in, and they kind of bring that back to me. I think it'd kind of have the same effect, maybe on a shorter term basis, but those roadside memorials are there for they're almost permanent. Some of them, you can see them. So anyway, if
No,
that
thank
answers
you.
your question.
No, thank you.
You're welcome.
That does.
All right.
Thanks. And then for our attorney, and the liability thing that like pops in my head. If we're admitting there's these fatal incidents, we're broadcasting those, like the liability issue. Is that a real thing?
One could hypothesize a case where that was a tipping point factor. I think most cases you're not going to establish liability through a program like this that is set up with an obvious intention to increase driver attention at that particular incident by advertising after the fact. There was a collision here. There was a fatal accident here. So I don't think it's a major factor. I don't think it's a major factor that you would come along afterwards and take action to try to improve the safety of a traffic situation. There is a rule of evidence that prevents that from being used, for the simple reason that if it could be used, it would discourage safety improvement. If you say, well, you admitted that it was your fault because you came along afterwards and you put in a stop sign, right? And that would be contrary to public policy, as they say, because you want to encourage safety improvement and not make it a liability warning light. So anyway, I think it's not a simple situation, but I think in general, we do what makes sense without considering these liability factors. That's what we should do.
Thank you.
Councilmember Contreras-Deloche.
Well, first I want to say thank you for the great report. I feel like you gave me way more than what I was kind of even hoping for. It was like this kind of like, and here's what's going on in here and here. And so I really appreciate that. I did, and I appreciate all the questions, which were like the bulk of mine. That was one thing I was going to ask, and I appreciate City Attorney Black addressing it, because when I had looked into it, I couldn't find, Santa Rosa and some of these other places have implemented. I couldn't find anybody that this had resulted in lawsuits for them to evaluate if there was some structural issue that needed to be changed. But I wasn't sure. I knew that was a concern that had been brought up to me. I did wonder, kind of along those same lines, because it was a concern, is how that would differ from reporting of other kinds. You mentioned we have these other forms of reporting about kind of these hot spots. And so I'm wondering why there's a concern for us tracking that in a more like dialed down format.
Yeah, I think that we have, tracking, reporting of hotspots. That's more taking existing data and kind of analyzing it for like, where are the collisions happening? Are there spots where there's multiple collisions happening? Whereas this is more of a focus, or as City Attorney Black said, it's an advertising for the fatality that happened there. So I think, they're different from that standpoint, like an immediate response to something that has just happened versus, looking at a situation and looking at multiple data points and trying to understand, is there something systematic happening here that we can address, that we can identify?
Would you guys still have concerns about if we weren't implementing, say, like signage or marking it off? Would you still have concerns about implementing the aspect of the program where you guys take a look at where these hotspots are and see if there's things that need to be changed or improved? Like, is there a concern about doing that part as well, or just the, big flashing sign?
No, I think we as a staff, we definitely review these situations and look for, we look for identifying potential things that can be, fixed quickly. I think that's an important part of, what we do in our response, because if we don't go out there and take a look at it, there could be something as easy as, X, Y, or Z isn't working properly at this time. And maybe that was part of it. So we definitely want to get out there and,
and take a look at that.
Yeah, thank you. And this might be actually, I'm not sure if this is a question for EPD, but maybe it is a question for you. You had mentioned earlier that after there's like a fatal or a very serious, collision, that you do get reports that you review as well that have to do with EPD's collision reports. Does EPD's collision reports include information about the surrounding structures, or is it just strictly a report about the collision itself?
They typically include an idea about what the cause of the collision might have been, or what factors might have been at play with the collision. So was there, was there low light? Was there, wet conditions? Did somebody go the wrong way on a roadway? Were they impaired during the collision? Those are the sorts of things that they typically they might identify, like a traffic or a traffic signal or a traffic device issue. So that's where, when we get that report, we can look at that, and then we can follow up with questions if there is something that might be that we didn't find in the field. Talk to whoever the reporting officer is and try to get more information about the specifics of what was captured at the time that they were there.
Thank you. Do I have time for one more? Okay. Let me look in this really quick. You had talked about the CCRS and the TIMS network. And I was just curious, how often do those reports generate? How often are you guys able to review those?
Yeah, so we tend to look at that. That's why I put that in the long-term approach, because that data might not be immediate. Like right now, we may not have information for this portion of 2026, but we can pull data. It usually takes a while for it to get processed and cleared. But again, that's why we kind of look at it as that long term. We're looking for trends. We're looking for issues where there might be hot spots, over the years, over a 10-year period. Is there something happening in a specific location that we have to step back and look at it in a bigger picture, network wise? There's something we need to change. Like, that's typically how we use that data. It's not very good for like immediate response, like review. That's where having EPD's accident report, which eventually goes into that system and gets included in it, but that's where we get that data for right now, like what's happening here, and then we use the CCR data, CCRS data for the long-term planning.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. I think, on the grand scale there, there's aspects of the emergency streets protocol that I feel is a lot. And I think that could be a very distressing thing, even just for other community members driving by, like a huge sign. Plus, I think we only have 2 of those signs, if memory serves. But there's other parts of it that I wonder if it might be beneficial for us to take a look at and kind of incorporate into our overall kind of safety structure at a scaled, back approach, where that we look at those things, sooner rather than later. For a number of things, I know there's different hotspots in the city. 14th and E, I live close to it, so I know how many accidents are there. I even had an accident there, but or H and I think it's H, right? And Harris, where you have people coming and they hurry, and almost always people come from this direction are trying to hurry and get over to this side, and people come from this direction. And so there's this, crisscross applesauce thing happening right there. And it's kind of wonky, and we all know it's wonky, but, I think it's kind of like, more that I want us to, evaluate some of these and, look at, is there a way that we can make this safer, particularly for pedestrians too? I appreciate the emphasis on the fatal traffic collisions, but, those bulb outs, one of the reasons why we put those in, right, is because people are cutting corners and doing it very quickly. And it's just so dangerous to people who are out walking or biking. So that's kind of I appreciate you going into all of this, because I think the spirit of this is that I'm like, how do we zero in on maybe some areas that we could make some improvements and make them safer? Like, what are you guys looking at? What's popping up? And like, hey, is there something we can do about it? So, thanks.
Anything further? Nope. Thank you so much. Great report.
Mayor, we do
need to take public comment. Yes. Is there anyone from the public that would like to comment on this item in chambers? Seeing no one, will bring it over to Zoom, and I see Mr.
Colin.
Fisk.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and council members. This is Colin Fisk with CRTP. I want to start off by just thanking Councilmember Contreras-Deloach for bringing this forward and the staff for investigating and providing their report. I want to comment on a few things. First of all, just to emphasize that the emergency streets protocol isn't meant to replace the long-term safety planning that's already going on. It really should be in addition to that. I think it's about both changing the culture by showing that, we really mean it when we say that no traffic death is acceptable, and also finding ways to update the infrastructure more quickly, especially in a place like Eureka and our local communities where we have relatively small populations. There ends up being a lot of variation in crashes from year to year, and really every fatal crash is a really big deal. Standard police reports are not designed to assess the impact of infrastructure. They record some context information, but they're basically designed to assign fault to one of the people involved. And that's why I think that it's so important for people like engineers and planners and other safety experts to do their own investigation after a crash that doesn't look at the human factors, which is what the police report looks at, but the infrastructure factors. Of course, the city is doing a lot of good work already on safety improvements, and I don't want to, discount that. But I think we all know that it's not enough, that the standard protocols are not working, not just in Eureka, but everywhere. Crashes and injuries and deaths have not come down significantly, and I think Eureka has the opportunity to lead here. Regarding some of those concerns that were expressed, I hope that the city would reach out to the folks who designed the Emergency Streets Protocol and others who are starting to implement it. I would guess that many of these things are being addressed or have been addressed. But I do just want to briefly address a couple of them myself. One is, I don't think that the idea that traffic calming would be somehow dangerous really bears out. I think the traffic calming protocols can be largely pre-designed and standardized, and also just by its nature, traffic calming, slowing traffic, makes things safer because speed is pretty much the primary determinant of both the likelihood of a crash and the outcome of a crash. And research also shows that in an urban environment, design features that make people pay attention to their environments actually make streets safer, which is opposed to this kind of old-fashioned idea that we need to make streets predictable for drivers. Actually, when we do that in an urban environment, it makes people pay less attention to their surroundings and more likely to get into a crash. So, just to, I guess, sum it up, I appreciate this being brought forward. I don't think we should be pitting sort of emergency streets against.
Thank you, Colin. I'm sorry, your time is up.
Okay.
Thanks for being here. Do you see anybody else?
I see no one else.
Okay. Thank you so much for that great report. And this moves us to future agenda items. Any? Councilmember Contreras-Deloach.
Yeah, I wanted to see if we could have a presentation by the Youth Advisory Board and Tay, the Transition Age Youth, if we could have them come and do a presentation.
I'm actually talking to Amy about doing that in mayor's reports.
Okay.
No, I've already addressed it.
Oh, you.
I was going to do it in mayor's reports unless you'd like to do it in presentations.
No, it's all you. So I'm just checking. I'm checking that off my list, and you can add it to yours.
Councilmember Bauer.
I don't know if we have this, but I bring this up from Pack Out Green Team, pallets, and how do we control people from not leaving them out where they get taken?
So years ago, 8 to 10 years ago, we probably have an old draft that we looked at for an ordinance to regulate pallets. We never did pass it, correct? Yeah. So we can look into that.
Yeah, I think one day I think I personally moved 52 pallets or something like that out of a site, and it's because some say they intentionally leave them out to go away so they don't have to dress, So I would appreciate us.
And one of the issues that we had when we went this, from my recollection, I was overseeing environmental programs at the time. It's the disposal of them that we have an issue. So if we do a program similar to the cart ordinance, the carts typically will be taken because the pallets, you don't know what was on them and the contamination and whether or not they were contaminated. I think that's kind of the sticking point, but we can look at it again to see if there's another remedy for it.
And along those lines, free bins. So I've picked up, people put free bins out on the sidewalk and they end up in the greenways and gulches. Free bins full of like clothes and books.
I didn't know what you were talking about with free bins.
Well, you see them on the sidewalk, and I've seen them out in front of my sidewalk, and then I pick them up out of the gulch. And so I hate to mean, I appreciate people wanting to give away their stuff, but they a lot of times end up in our green spaces. So hate to want to regulate things like that, but it seems like that's what happens.
Thought you were blaming something on recology for a second. I didn't know what free bins were.
So do we have consensus on those two items? Anybody? Pallets and regulation.
I'm trying to understand the free bins part here.
People put stuff out on the street. It ends up in the green belt.
Okay. Oh. But pallets were good?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, we've had a lot of conversations with them about it. As it relates to the free bins, what we can do is we can talk to environmental programs and encourage people to use our bulky item pickup, because a lot of the times they'll put in, sofas or something like that, not realizing that they have an ability under their existing subscription for garbage that they can get that hauled off for free.
Wouldn't free bins, wouldn't that be covered under littering? If somebody goes, it's illegal dumping. So if it's problematic, there's already an enforcement mechanism in place for it. It's just a matter of how it gets enforced and when.
Well, it depends on where they put them. Now, if it's on the sidewalk, we could be sticklers and say that they need an encroachment permit to put their stuff on the sidewalk. But if they put it in their lawn and say it's a free bin, there's not really much regulation that we can do.
So your issue is when random person comes, takes all of it, but does nothing with it, and it just ends up in I could see where that would be difficult to regulate.
Well, they're mainly on the sidewalk, so I guess we do have existing regs, for littering. So maybe it's just an enforcement issue.
Maybe it's like in Arcata, where it's a matter of public outreach. Like when there's public conversation around, you put it out, you take it back in. If you put it out again tomorrow, fine, but you don't just leave stuff out in the rain. If you are responsible for it until somebody else is responsible for it. Anyway.
And I think what you're getting at too is that who ends up being responsible for that is the people that are out in the green belts, cleaning the green belts once a week, or, our police department that's out there. So pallets was a go and free bins was a no. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay.
Support a social media post about free bins.
Yeah. A campaign. Okay. Anything further? This leads us to city manager reports.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, Mayor and Council. I just have a quick mention of something, and then we're going to have Special Projects Manager Davis brag about himself. So we have, as I know, we've been talking about emergency operations, and there's a coordinated effort by city staff to do a tsunami preparedness workshop for Eureka businesses. It is happening on April 20th at 8 a.m. at the Wharfinger building. It's a Monday, and it will take place at the Wharfinger at 8. Businesses will sit down one-to-one with an expert, such as our Chief Citro, and develop a customized preparedness plan. Local partners will have booths to share additional information. Participation is by appointment only, so please schedule an appointment with EconDev at eurekaca.gov. That's ECONDEV at eurekaca.gov. This is a first in a series, and there'll be more to come. So
Can I get
Thank
the
you
date
for
and time on that again?
What's that?
Can I get the date and time on that again?
It's the Monday, April 20th at 8 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Got it. Got it. 4:20 in the morning.
Okay. I wasn't going to say that, but I knew you'd do it. Anyway, so with that, Special Project Manager Davis was selected as a participant in the National League of Cities kind of forum on some of the social services program being offered by different cities across the nation, and you'll be surprised who we rank with. So thank you, Jeff.
It's awesome.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. All right, so the National League of Cities, it's an organization dedicated to helping city leaders build better communities. A part of the National League of Cities is this team called the Economic Opportunity and Financial Empowerment Team. And so right now, their focus is helping cities and their residents promote financial stability, security, and wealth building. So this team kind of looked across the nation, this nationwide search, did their own research, and reached out to a number of cities that they have identified as cities that have been doing their part in creating these resilience centers and doing things, and kind of reached out to multiple cities to learn more about the strategies and the approaches that have been working, that have been implemented. And they are in the process now of building resilient models that they can share with other cities and kind of broaden the horizons. The National League of Cities Congressional City Conference happened last month, and over 2,000 elected officials and appointed city leaders joined in, and it was held in Washington, D.C. One of the panels was the Community Resilience Centers panel. The city of Eureka was represented. I think there's 11 cities in total that were there, and some of these cities were fairly large cities. And so to be able to be on a panel representing Eureka was an honor, and be able to sit at the table with folks that are running programs and projects that are really helping build resilience within their community was really beneficial. Learning from what these other cities are doing and kind of sharing what we're doing was, I think, just beneficial. It was all around. Within the National League of Cities, there are, I believe, 2,700 member cities. But if you expand their network to all of I think there's 49 state city leagues, the reach is over 19,000 cities. And out of those 19,000 cities, about 75% have populations of 5,000 or less. So for a city like Eureka to be able to kind of share what's working, kind of share a roadmap on how to get there, I think would be beneficial to most cities across the country. And so, some of the key findings were, we're doing a lot of things, we're providing a lot of services, and our programs are very similar to these much larger cities, providing much larger services to much larger populations. It was really surprising to see how these systems that we have implemented in Eureka are being implemented in larger cities, and hearing their impacts and how they collect data. It was very interesting, and then also. A lot of similarities also with how how these different programs are operating and their structures. And then so moving forward right now, like I had mentioned, the National League of Cities did not, this wasn't something you'd applied for. They just kind of did their own research. They reached out to these different organizations. But very soon there's going to be an application open. So cities, I think they're going to select 4 cities to be a part of this committee that will develop a kind of a how-to document to support other cities around the nation. And so I believe I think that's coming out next month, and that would be, I think, a wonderful opportunity to, share what we're doing and learn from others as well. And so I think one of the main reasons that the city of Eureka and Uplift was identified, in addition to all the programmings that we're doing over the years, is really our community resource center. It was something that was brought up, and I think a lot of folks were surprised that a city of our size has a place like this that's offering the array of services that it currently is. I'll go quick because I think I've done a very similar presentation here within the last year, but it is an amazing facility. It's over at 1111 E Street. It's the East Street side of the Municipal Auditorium. The Resource Center is open Monday through Friday from 10 to 4, and we do a number of things there. I think we're one of the few programs here in the community that has diapers that we can offer to families, the Little Bottoms programs. Last year, we were awarded a grant from Humboldt sponsors. And then more recently, I think we had a call to action for the community for donations, and over 2,000 diapers were donated the following day. And so this is, just want to get the word out. If you're in need of diapers, please stop by our Community Resource Center. We have them. Every day there's something happening at our resource center. We have anything between NA meetings, NAMI. We have workshops for employment, for housing. We have free phones that we're giving out on Fridays. So there's a lot happening. And just some brief numbers. So these numbers are just the first quarter of 2026. So already in the first 3 months, we've been helping quite a few folks. I believe last year's total, so the Resource Center opened in January of last year. I believe we served about 950 people, individual guests, and I believe it was around 2,500 unique visits last year. So we're definitely on track to continue that trend and help more and more community members. Housing is probably the number one thing, but we have folks anywhere from students to seniors coming and asking for assistance to either get connected with services or resources. We just giving out 264 phones through our partners has been amazing. It happens all at the Muni, and it's connecting folks to services, having a number where folks can be reached. We also have a mail service. We have almost 60 folks that are receiving mail there, and otherwise they'd have a lot of challenges getting connected with different services. And this is growing. This is, a program that we've had going for about a year now, a little over a year, 15 months. And every day we're getting approached by either community organizations or folks that are asking for different resources. And we're, continuing to just answer the ongoing community demand. I think we're anticipating a higher need very soon for, either volunteer programs or work programs so folks can keep the benefits they're already receiving. And so we are establishing a job skills training program. We are very close to getting certified to be, it's considered a job fair program, which soon some folks will be required to have 80 hours a month of either volunteer or work service. If we do get that credential through our program, they would only have to do 18 hours a month. And so, this is something that will really ease the burden and really help more folks meet those requirements. Once again, it's the Uplift Eureka Community Resource Center. I think it's one of the main reasons. It's one of the things that I think that got the attention on the national level. And if you haven't been there before, please stop by. There's a lot going on, and it's something that we look forward to continue to operate and continue to expand and help build a resilient community.
Does anybody have any questions for Jeff? Councilmember Moulton?
I don't have a question, but just a comment. Congratulations to you and your whole team, and to all of the staff that support the efforts over there. I always like to brag how Eureka is, we're always willing to try new things, we're always really willing to push for progress. And we go farther faster because we are such a small city, but we also have big city problems. So I just think that's just lovely. That's all.
Anybody else? Councilmember Castellano?
Yeah, thank you. I've I definitely refer people to you and your services, and I'm very thankful that you're there for them. And I always hear good reports back that they really do receive help, so thank you for that.
Councilmember Contreras Deloach.
You rock, Jeff Davis. And I appreciate all of you and all of your staff over there. You guys do incredible work, and you're part of why I have so much confidence in where we're headed. So you're one of the many standout employees that just does amazing work. Thank you.
All right. Jeff Davis, you know. You're a rock star. All right. If there's nothing further, we're adjourned.